I've decided to keep a journal.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Podcasty For Me, the podcast about film, culture, politics, and Paul Schrader, where we watch every film written and or directed by American filmmaker Paul Schrader. We explore how they speak to their moment in this one. The show's hosted by two guys. I'm one of the guys. My name is Jake Serwin.
I'm one of the guys. My name is Ian Ryan.
Hey, today we should call you Ian Country, because you're in country. He's in
true.
the United States today as we record.
Stateside, yeah. Like an agent who's returned from the field. Exactly.
The spy who came in from
the
Oaxaca. It's not cold there.
Nope. Not at all.
Warm, yeah.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I feel like I am so confident about this episode. I feel like I'm in good hands.
Really?
I'm one of the hosts. So
Yeah.
Not usually how it works, but...
I have a whole calculation actually about who everybody is on the podcast
of course.
From the film. So we're going to bring our guests in 1 second. Really quick, just want to say we have, if you like to support the show, you can subscribe to our Patreon, $5 a month to get a bonus episode every other week about Clint Eastwood stuff. Play Misty for Me, movies before Play Misty for Me, I should say. Every week we cover the film Play Misty for Me again, and all kinds of Clint ephemera. We just talked about Clint on Ellen.
We did.
Watch a clips of the Ellen Show.
Great episode.
Thank you so much. It helps us keep this feed free, so please consider supporting us at patreon.com/podcasty4me. Our guests, we got to get them in here. Our guests today are returning to the show. We're very excited to have them back from the To the White Sea podcast. I'm going backwards mode. Ray Tintori and Jordan Fish, welcome to the show.
Ooh.
Thank you so
Hello.
much.
How you guys doing?
So excited to be here.
Very excited to be here. I'm one of the guests.
Hey, we should start making people say that.
Damn, a script.
Yeah, we should send we do script the show.
Yeah.
We send the full script, and it's like Harold Pinter.
I was going to say it's full of
word
ums
perfect.
and some of the stupidest sentences that you could imagine. That's great.
Yeah, and we both look like a Jewish Michael Caine. Doesn't he he's got kind of I guess it's just the glasses mostly, and he's got a big head.
Michael Caine's not Jewish?
Is Micklewhite? Depends.
Ooh.
You know that's his real name, right? Morris Micklewhite.
Whoa.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Damn.
He changed it. Supposedly he changed it. His agent was like, you can't be named Morris Micklewhite and supposedly he was at a payphone and he looked around and they were showing there was a movie with is it Michael Redgrave? Is that the guy's name? And the Caine Mutiny, on a different
wow.
marquee. Okay. And thus the man was born.
Michael Redgrave going to come up later on the pod, I assume. Maybe.
Yeah, he's in the movie. Speaking of in the movie, so I've done some calculations. Okay, so there's 4 of us here. Yep. I actually, when we booked this, I just thought we got to have the guys back on the show. We had such a good time. Mm-hmm. And Comfort of Strangers, I didn't know anything about it, so I was like, well, I don't know. What do you guys want to do this one? Jordan was like, cool. But actually, it's a movie about 4 people, and so ideal guests for this because there's 2 of them and 2 of us. Yep. So first of all, it's our show, and they're the guests. So we're Robert and Caroline.
Has to be, yeah. Yep.
Has to be.
And
and I'm the Canadian wife. Is that it?
We'll get to it. Okay. We'll get to it. I'm the Canadian. Well, no, Ian's the Canadian wife.
Very clear that I'm the Canadian wife. Yeah.
Ian gets hurt so often that it seems like a pain kink. So and
you may have been known to repeat the same story 1 or 2 times.
I tell the same story over and over again. I have an unplaceable air of menace.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been accused of having different kinds of accents, but it's just because I talk weird. So that makes me Robert, and you're Caroline. And then I don't think I know this for a fact, but I get the sense that Ray is taller. Ray, are you taller?
Am I?
Definitely.
I think
really?
So.
Yeah, Ray's 6 something.
Hey, mazel tov.
And I'm 5 something.
Yeah, and Jordan, you've got I think slightly longer hair by an inch.
I think I have taller hair.
You have taller hair. So that makes you... So you're Mary.
Uh-huh.
You're Natasha Richardson. And that makes Ray Colin complimentary exclusively. This is...
Well, I don't mean... Beautiful people. No, I think it's
beautiful people.
I'll take
it's
that.
a film of 4 incredibly hot people.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like a... Yeah. And, and a 5th, of course. The city of Venice. She is a character.
It never fails to inspire when you make those kinds of pronouncements about a film.
I mean, it is funny, but it's also true. It's the only other thing going on in the movie is the city,
and it's going on very strongly for a lot of the movie.
What's the city's arc
Eastward. If you listen to Paul Schrader talk about this, he goes on and on about how
it was actually the gateway
Venice,
to the east.
Venice used to be have a much more eastward orientation, Byzantine.
Yeah,
and he focused on the oriental aspects of the architecture in Venice, which is always a comfortable phrase to use. We'll get into it. I guess we got to get into our 2 questions now. Fellas, we're able to come up with 2 questions for our famous segment, the 2 questions, where we ask each other 2 questions.
I was going to do it the way we did last time, and I was going to ask a question, and Ray was going to ask a question.
Terrific.
That sounds great to me.
Love it.
Ray, were you on board with this?
Yeah.
Did you know about
absolutely.
this? Okay,
we talked earlier
Let's
today.
do it.
There are 2 people who love each other more than anybody else, and they're best friends. So that's perfect.
And the curtains are closing.
You go
Taking
first,
the
Jordan.
phone off the hook.
Okay, well, in keeping with the theme and the topic of today's episode, my question is, have you ever been lost or wandering around in a European country or any foreign country that brings a interesting story to mind?
Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lost in Venice, like lightly, but that's sort of being there is to be lost there. I noticed while I was in Venice like last year, that the streets are slightly narrower than the margin of error for Google Maps. Like the satellite literally can't tell if you're on this one or the next one because they're so narrow. And so there's a lot of, I guess I don't really have like a good story as much as just like sort of endless wandering, and like the minotaur of this labyrinth is just British people. They're just, they seem like they're following you. They all look very similar. Also, ankle pain, I guess, is the other minotaur, because you're going up a lot of stairs. But it's a lovely town. I don't think I've been lost entertainingly. What about you, Ian?
I don't think particularly entertainingly either, but certainly I've had an approximate experience to this relationship under the stress of traveling in a European country. Sure. And our Don't Look Now child was like getting back to the hotel for a nap. That's what you really, if you don't find that, then you're doomed and you'll never make it. So
your nap drowned.
That's
spoilers for the opening scene of Don't Look Now.
Yes.
I watched Don't Look Now again in a Venice hotel room, which is always
scary.
an advisable thing to do. I will say, just right here, we got to drop it in right here. You're on a trip. This is a Jake tip.
Okay.
Print your stuff out, folks.
Oh.
What you want to do is you want to get a folder from the drugstore, like a children's school folder, and you want to print stuff out. Ideally, you want a map that you can maybe get from like the back of a Lonely Planet guide or something. You rip that bad boy out. You want to print out where your hotel is.
Yep.
You want to print out all your confirmation codes. Let's get them on paper. You're never going to use this, but you're going to feel so good that you have it, unless your phone dies or something. Print stuff out. That's the Jake promise. And then you know what? You tuck all your little brochures and your tickets and stuff into the folder.
Dad mode.
You got yourself a keepsake.
Oh,
now you can look back at the folder.
Yeah.
It's a scrapbook before you even...
Exactly. You
before you even got
what was
back.
our confirmation code for that museum? Why I have it right here.
Yeah.
It's 2045.
Yeah.
All of these
Venice
people
is
are
gone.
dead.
Venice is underwater. Yeah.
What about you, gentlemen? You ever get lost?
Do you guys guys ever get
country?
lost?
I got lost one time in the woods in Italy, like super bad, when I was like 17. And
How did you get to the Italian woods?
I was working on an Italian farm. I was like woofing on an Italian farm.
Didn't know this about you. Very cool.
I went to take a walk. I had a cold and I just got so lost that it took until like midnight.
Oh my
God. I basically, at a certain point, I was just like, okay, electrical wires will head to society eventually. So I'm just following telephone poles.
So you got to the power station.
Yeah, I was just like, and eventually I got to like a construction site in the middle of the night, and these, I was able to say like what my address was, and these Italian guys like drove me back, but it was like the most lost and very much in a foreign country. It was scary.
I'm sure.
That sounds terrifying, but also, like a beautiful story to tell now. Were there men out with dogs like beating the the grass with sticks to look for you?
Looking for me? No, no one was looking for me. No, I was very aware that
you just went to the next farm. Nobody would ever have searched for you.
Yeah, I was definitely in a kind of like a drifter phase at that point. Yeah. So it would have been pretty hard, I think, to pin me down. Where was
this? Is like a Sicily and Apulia? Where were you in Italy?
This was in Tuscany.
Ah, wow.
Tuscany. It was sick. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Well, Jordan, can you top that? Or
I cannot top that. Sure. Per se, but last time I asked about supernatural experiences and I didn't have one. This time I did think about it, and I was in Amsterdam on tour with a band called MGMT, who are friends of mine, and I was doing video with them, and we had a day in the city, and then we like ate breakfast, and then people kind of paired off, and then I ended up trying to find my way back to the hotel. And just like, I think my phone died, and then I couldn't remember the name of the hotel. Whoa. I was like, I think it's Hotel American, but I like, it just seemed like not a real name. Yeah. And I was kind of wandering around just being like, I don't want to blab some nonsense at somebody. And I just sort of did that. And then at a certain point,
like you've had a stroke and you're just like, the only words left, Hotel American. Yeah.
I hadn't like recreated the exact vibe until I told the story, but I really think that was something like what my thought process was. But then eventually I think I really, really got lost, and I just went down a bunch of circuitous streets. And then I was like, I think I've seen this fountain before. I'm just going to be like Hotel American and just going to say it to a random guy. And then he was like, oh yeah. And then he just like pointed me like that way. And it definitely wasn't the way that I was thinking it was. And made it
critical
back,
intervention.
Okay, that's good. They don't mainly serve coffee here at all. Why do they call it that? And you just got lost.
Yeah.
You know, spiritually as well. I've never been to Amsterdam. It's another canal city.
It is.
They call it the Venice of the Netherlands. They call it that.
Has tourism in Amsterdam like suffered
due to the weed?
Yeah.
I would imagine so, but on the other hand,
fallen off
young
a cliff.
Young Brits still go there to get extremely high.
What about if you're from a non-US country?
Yeah.
Like what if you're from Russia or India?
Okay.
The other two countries.
Last time I was
in
Amsterdam, went to smoke at one of these famous drug bars, and a young Polish man was so excited. It was the first time he ever smoked weed. His father took him to the bar because he wanted a chaperone. He was like about 21 years old. He took a picture with all of us so that he would remember.
That's cute.
Yeah, very nice.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And that boy, who's a Polish guy.
Take your time.
Marie Curie? Is she Polish? No.
Yep.
Kieślowski. It was Krzysztof Kieślowski.
That's right. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of Polish guys, you hear they're remaking Possession? Weird idea.
I did read that. Yeah.
So weird. There's nothing there to remake. The film is like Possession is all of the decisions on the film.
It's not the plot of Possession that brings you back.
Yeah.
It's the energy that was captured between all of the principles in a kind of
audiences
like alchemy.
Yeah.
Audiences want to return to the world of a weird guy whose wife is also weird. That's what they... It's like, it's I see the turkey, the carving knife in the background. That's going to come up later in the film, you know?
Do you guys like remakes of great... Like, do you like the Richard Gere Breathless?
I've not seen the Richard Gere Breathless.
Oh.
But I often am breathless when I see Richard Gere on screen. Like in the film American Gigolo, which we talked about on the show.
I mean, similar films.
Some of them can be interesting. I mean, I'm not opposed to them. I've been plenty surprised by a remake like
Cape Fear?
Yes.
Cape Fear's great. There's I think it's come up on the show before, there's a Christian Petzold sort of reimagining of what is that movie called? Of Carnival of Souls called Yella. And you would think that remaking Carnival of Souls is not something you should do. But that movie, it's sort of a reimagining. It works well.
Do you like Psycho?
And then, of course, I do actually really like the Van Sant Psycho.
Yeah.
But
not to bring it back to, but I guess to bring it back to Coen's for a minute, I was thinking... Sure. Recently, I watched the original Lady Killers, and I've been thinking about how part of the problem with the remake might be that the original was a great film. Like that, on paper, it's like, we'll remake this zany comedy. And then when you watch it, you're like, wow, Alec Guinness kind of hit that so hard out of the park.
Right.
that might have been like one of the problems with trying to make a new one.
Right. I mean, like the remake, I feel like the potential of a remake to be like another swing at a missed premise, like the Ocean's 11, I think is the example people like to cite because I think the first one is
kind
fairly
of inert,
poorly thought of. Yeah. But like we should do that more. Just take a movie that sounded like it was going to be good, and then wasn't, and remake it. Like let's remake The Last Witch Hunter, the film about Vin Diesel's high school D&D campaign.
I feel like
that good.
Isn't that what they did with Suicide Squad a little bit? They were just like, we just made this movie. Let's just exactly.
Yeah, that was weird.
I've thought about that with Sliding Doors. Because it's a movie where everybody knows the premise. It's almost like shorthand for like a moment. And then the actual movie itself like is kind of nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, Jordan.
And you know what you should do is do the whole thing Zemeckis mocap style. So everyone is the same age that they were. So it's like its own sort of Sliding Doors better remake.
I've actually been remaking it. Like I just shoot a little bit of it a year, and then in 20 years I'm gonna have
Linklater style
Sliding Doors too.
We gotta leak that. Robert Rodriguez, John Malkovich like tequila movie that's not supposed to come out till 2100. Do you guys know about this?
I don't know about this.
I heard about this.
No,
that's incredible.
I mean, it's not a movie. It's like when they say there's a new Wes Anderson short film that's for like Stella Artois or something. It's a like a short film inspired by Bacardi or something like that. But they've put it in a vault until whatever 2115 or something, 100 years after they made it, and it stars John Malkovich.
Well, the problem isn't capitalism; it's short-term greed.
So, right. Those
guys are actually
teaching us delayed gratification. So everyone in the Oasis from Ready Player One is going to be really excited to watch that when it comes out.
I know there's this embargoed footage that Harmony Korine has, this doc that he shot. It's like him and Michael Jackson and David Blaine and Uri Geller doing a road trip in Africa in like 2003.
Who was it embargoed by? The International Criminal Court?
Harmony. It's like Harmony Korine is like, I shot this footage of this road trip that we all did. Right. But I'm not going to edit it for like 25 years or anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So look forward to that.
It's the tape from Grizzly Man, basically.
No one should ever hear this.
He knows Herzog.
Yeah, Herzog actually watched that footage and he was like, Harmony, you must destroy this tape.
You must never edit this. Put it away. Yeah.
And he changed his mind on the Grizzly Man one, but not on this. Yeah. He just feels very confident about
it. If I had to pick. Yeah. All right. Was that just Jordan's question?
That was just one.
Okay. One beautiful question. Ray, do you have a second beautiful question for us?
Yeah. I guess my question is like, what's so great about having complex friends? Because like this movie made me think like when you're meeting new people and they really telegraph to you, hey, this is so Byzantine, right? Or it's like, what you're entering into here is so complex. Like what makes you go like, it's great having complex friends. I want to become friends with these people.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my head, I've not been well served by the equation that someone who's emotionally complex and someone who's more challenging to be friends with is necessarily like better or more worthy. I think as I've gotten older, I have found more and more direct and like here's how it is type of friends, and I've appreciated that more. I sort of traded a complex psycho for Ian in college, and that was sort of I was like, I'm swapping this guy out and getting a new guy unlocked.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then Ian and I were at Largo. This is a podcast. We're talking about being at Largo. Yeah. We went to see John Bryan at Largo in LA, and I saw the old Psycho. The old Psycho friend. And afterward, Ian was like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, pick the right guy.
Aw, that's very nice. Wow.
Yeah. Then I didn't talk to him for about a year because I was uncomfortable with the closeness that we shared in that moment. But, that's not true. I don't know. Wait, so you think complex friends are good, though?
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're saying?
I mean, I guess, yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's fun to. It does feel like, if part of the reason to be alive and interact with people is to sort of learn other ways the mind can tick,
I think those to me are the competing impulses. You have the appeal of novelty, which obviously as you age, I think it's harder to find, especially if you stay in one community, one type of community. Then at the same time, I also think as you age, you're maybe seeking things that you already know how to deal with, things that you sort of like have a response for, have a process for. And when you come across maybe not a couple of this level of esoteric thinking,
right. Yeah.
Even any type of challenge to that, I think, does require something of you. But I if I had to pick, I would say that it is the more stimulating of the two options, seeking out somebody like that rather than somebody you just know.
And I feel like, artist types, creative types tend to be people who have their own unique relationship to the world around them and social relations and things like that. So there is a correlation between somebody who is particularly interesting and particularly, unusual novel, as Ian says. Unusual novel, that's what they base the movie on. But those people tend to also be kind of complex. So you're, on the one hand, you get the dependability of the dullard, and then on the other hand, you've got the challenge, sometimes good, sometimes bad, of the interesting man. But I'm worried, Ray, that you may have taken the wrong lesson from the film, because it seems like you think that you should go to this guy's house.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a Steelman argument, like where you take the absolute worst version of a complex person, and then you're like, what's good about them? I don't know if that's exactly a Steelman argument, but I think it's also, it's a hard question to answer because these are like anything interesting that comes to mind is also people that I'm like, I just don't want anyone to be like, that's me when I answer it. But I will say, I think that something that is true is that being extremely agreeable and being quote unquote collaborative doesn't always lead to the best outcomes when you're working together. And some of the most fruitful and interesting artistic collaborations I've had are with people where I'm like, oh, they're always trying to take it in a different direction. And then I just kind of needed to figure out what was the rhythm, or also kind of just realized that when they had a strong opinion, it turned out that they were right, or that there was something interesting that I didn't see. So, I guess my answer is that I think people who are multivalent or have layers can help you think outside yourself and your sort of preconceived notions and kind of get you out of this sort of, that'll be great sort of mentality.
I have to say, I was
Shrek.
Like Shrek. I was just thinking about it in a little bit in terms of Schrader in general too. Just like I watched a bunch of his movies before this, and I was like, I like this guy. He's very complex. Like I see, he seems like he's approaching me, and he's like lost in the maze of himself. Even as he's like making stuff and trying to communicate with me. And so it was just kind of like this guy is so complex, this older couple in this film are so complex. That's just kind of like, what do you get out of like interacting with someone who's just like so conflicted and so multi-layered?
That is a fascinating way to conceive of him. I think one of the things that I get from interacting with complex people like this is self-esteem. Because I see,
that's
well. I'm getting some stuff. I'm nailing some things that I should have a little bit more appreciation for my own solidity in the face of a Schrader or a Robert.
I think to yoke all those points, you either end up being pushed to a new perspective. Somebody like a Schrader, is a genuine challenge to something that like not only had you not considered, you would not have considered, which I appreciate, or you end up better rooted in your own positions of saying, okay, now I really understand why I don't think that's a legitimate option. So I think good.
I watched First Reformed and Mishima back to back for this, and I did definitely leave feeling like, okay, my problems are manageable. My shit is on the rails.
Man, that is a heavy double feature.
It's a great double feature. It's like actually super intertwined in like a wild way. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could I mean, I'm probably not going to do it myself just because of some of the like proclivities that are already within me. But I'm glad that you did it. I think it might be encouraging some not great behavior on my part.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the question, Ray. Should we get into the film? Should we talk about the film, The Comfort of Strangers?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? I have a secret third question. Sometimes there's a secret third question. I guess we could get to it at a different point, but I'm going to ask it now.
Go.
How come Christopher Walken has never worked with the Coen brothers? Seems like a layup. Seems like he would be
interesting question.
Terrific for all kinds of. I mean, he's great with a difficult and sort of mannered style of writing. He can be a cartoon character when they sometimes do that. In this film, he is a kind of a Coen style embodiment of evil as well.
And he can dance too.
And he can dance.
Yep.
It's very. I was sure that he must have been in one, and I couldn't remember it. But I went through. There's no overlap. Do we have any insight to this? Does he hate Minnesota?
Do you think he's like a collaborative guy to work with? Because I feel like they like to throw to people that they. I don't feel like they have that many people that are just like, this is a star persona. This guy's going to come and do. Like, I don't know what it's like to work with Christopher Walken, but I imagine it's a little bit. No, I do. A friend of mine directed Christopher Walken, and he came in and just did exactly what he wanted to do.
Interesting.
I feel like they wouldn't be so into that, right?
Isn't his working process like he gets the dialogue and he deletes all the punctuation? I feel like true. Like I deleted all the commas and the periods. What do you think, Joel and Ethan?
I just feel like he comes in and he's going to give you what he's prepared, but it's not like you're going to build a character together.
Well, how do you think that compares to somebody like a Cage, who I think of as also having a pretty strong take on his characters, but maybe it's more of a collaborative process?
I feel like they were incredibly worried about hiring him for Raising Arizona and then never hired him again.
Okay, so that may be the clearest demonstration of why they're not doing
this.
Which
is disappointing because he's incredible in the film, obviously. But,
oh, God, yeah.
It would be fun to see late period Cage in a Coen's and some other kind of character.
Yeah. Although, maybe too much. I don't know.
Were you surprised?
He'd be great as Robert.
Were you surprised when he showed up in Dune?
Oh, Christopher Walken for a second. I was like, wait, what did I miss? Yeah. No. So I remember when they were casting that because I had read the book, and so I was wondering who are they going to cast. My money was on Mick Jagger because he was supposed to be in the Jodorowsky one. And I thought, old guy, a lot of gravitas, gonna get a lot of your money's worth for just having him on screen.
And he has done a little bit of acting too.
Yeah, so Burnt Orange Heresy, and then Dune 2.
I mean, that would have been sick. Just like shooting him at that resolution, like that face.
Denny doesn't really answer my emails about what he should do in his movies, but I'll keep sending him. I liked him. I think people thought he was just not trying very hard, but I thought that was sort of I appreciated because there and here there's a kind of like aristocratic relaxedness that I think works in Dune 2. I don't know. I just like looking at him. What did you think, Ian?
Yeah, I understand the fear because there is also a type of a level of actor where I think if you're trying to create some type of world that people sink into, then maybe it pulls them back out of that world a little bit. And Walken maybe approaches that a little bit, which I think is what people were maybe responding to more than anything. They have this strong relationship with him already, and so in watching him, it's hard not to bring all that stuff to the viewing experience. But
they're on the world of Arrakis, and all of a sudden the guy from Joe Dirt shows up.
That's so funny.
Everybody's thinking of their
funny.
He's really good in Joe Dirt. He's very funny in that movie.
Yeah, but I think you're right that he is a guy who exudes this sense of like pompousness, but relaxed pompousness, like casual arch behavior. Right. I don't know.
Unknowable also.
Sure.
I just would like to know what people would like him to have done differently. In that, like, I thought it. I rewatched it and I enjoyed it a second time, and I liked the scene where he had to kiss Lisa Nalgaib's hand or foot or whatever. I just remember the physicality of that. He like sort of does it and he sort of doesn't do it, and I was like, there's a lot going on in like the way he like approached that little gesture. I think it's small stuff that works quite well.
to ease us into the film, so Schrader, I think he wanted Al Pacino, or as he calls him, Al. He said, I wanted Al. But he was tied up with Godfather 3. And Paul Schrader, in his infinite self-confidence, did apparently call Coppola and was like, hey, can
you loan
take him
him
for a
to
few
me?
days?
Wow.
Yeah. And Francis Ford Coppola was like, fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
But
You're in Italy? Bring him over.
yeah. But he was looking for 4 like very skilled, trained actors because it's Pinter and it's all, you know, it's 4 performances and that's sort of the whole film. I'm not sure how Walken came up, but you know, he was in the mix at the time. He had just played Max Zorin, the Bond villain in A View to a Kill, which I watched for some reason in preparation for this episode. Not good. Although his plan to blow up the San Andreas Fault in order to flood Silicon Valley is admirable. He should have, he should have done it. But Walken comes on, and he was learning Italian so that to influence his accent, I guess. But he was learning it in New York apparently. And Schrader said, so he learned a New York Italian accent. He said, Chris, that's all wrong. So Schrader calls up his friend Verde Visconti, who was doing PR for Prada at the time, but is also like descended from the Visconti line of aristocrats and is like the great grandniece of Luchino Visconti or something. And he says, I need an Italian man, 30s, 40s, homosexual, educated in London with great taste.
Wow.
And she says, oh, you mean Odone Colonna, who was like a prince. One of those guys who is a prince, but he's also just like walking around like... Yeah. And so Walken hung around with this guy to like pick up his whole vibe. And 3 days later, Walken calls Schrader and he's like, all right, I'm done with Colonna. And Schrader's like, well, it didn't work out. And he goes, no, I got him.
Wow.
And so he just absorbed this man like a parasitic twin. And that's the performance, is this Odone Colonna guy, who then I saw a picture of him because he sued his stepmother, who was like a Miss USA, who married a 90-year-old man to get the inheritance or something. So, you know, aristocrat stuff. It's cool that they still have those guys over there. It's kind of fun.
Sure. Now they all work for like a society that charitably replaces tires for Formula One cars or something.
Yeah. They're doing great work over there. They're real philanthropists. They're lovers of the people.
Yes.
Let's talk about the film. This is a movie, The Comfort of Strangers. It's directed by Paul Schrader. It came out in 1990 or 1991, depending on what country you live in. It came out in Italy first, weirdly, then the UK, and then the US. It's directed by Paul Schrader from a script by Harold Pinter, from a 1981 novel by Ian McEwan.
Yeah.
Got another Ian on the show. Are you feeling okay about this?
I'm
Ian?
feeling pretty good. If we're talking about how I feel comparable to some of the these strong personalities, I think I'm coming out ahead of Ian McEwan.
You're on top.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if it comes down to like Greco-Roman style, we're beating both. I mean, one of them's dead. One of them's out.
Yeah.
And the other two, yeah, we got this in the bag.
Yeah, just in terms of like things I've said about Palestine, you know, I feel like just kind of a baseline.
Yeah, your relationship, your personal friendship with Christopher Hitchens,
right? Almost
not
non-existent.
Present. Yeah. Well,
I'm sure you sent him a few emails at some point.
Sure. Can't say 0.
What was the movie that shot in his apartment? Wasn't there a Clint
Chunking
movie
Express.
that shot partially? Yeah.
Yeah, he has a closet of purely pineapple juice. Yeah.
No, there was a Clint movie. I think it was Absolute Power, where one of the sets was actually shot in Christopher Hitchens' DC apartment. Do you remember this?
I don't remember this somehow.
I think it was where he keeps his stolen paintings.
It's kind of a sick choice. That's good.
It is a sick choice.
It is. Well, and I learned also, my first note when watching this film is like, shooting in Venice must be a fucking nightmare, because just like being in Venice is difficult, like visiting it is hard, and apparently you have to get your setups like locked in months in advance, because you then have to go to people in apartments near where you want to shoot to ask them to put lights inside their homes because there's nowhere else to put the lights. So you have to like make an agreement with like an old lady to set up a light
on
in
both
her window.
sides of an alley. Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
The streets do not look very friendly for dolly track. Also,
They don't.
like you'd run out of shims pretty fast.
Well, and you have to have everything carried in on boats. It's insane.
Yep.
It should not exist. This city, like it's fun.
It was designed by cavemen, basically, right?
I mean, I think it was designed by like guys in recline. You know, it was just designed by like the incredibly rich shipping guys in like 1100 who are like, my house is going to be on its own rock next to this other guy. They talk like that too, and it's been sinking the whole time.
Yep.
It's also the kind of thing where the guy who wrote Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil wrote another book about Venice. It's like that book, but Venice instead of Savannah, Georgia. And he quotes all these, especially like British writers, who were saying Venice was like a played out tourist trap in like 1850. Like they're already talking about how it's tacky and there's no character left in it.
People had the most modern conversations in 1850.
They did.
It's really true.
Yep.
Yeah, we should return. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we're already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Nothing really changes. Okay, so Schrader's trying to get his movie Forever Mine off the ground, and it doesn't work out. And then there is this script, basically ready to go.
Pinter adapted. Yep.
Yeah, Pinter had already adapted this. John Schlesinger was going to direct it, and he's the one who brought on Rupert Everett because they needed like a British man who looked like a statue of a god, basically. So there was a guy ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And Schrader comes in. He says that this is one of his least personal films, but he's very proud of it. So there's something interesting going on there. And I think we can find some Schrader in this.
I see some Schrader-like concerns in this film.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he says there are 3 themes, and the themes correspond to each of the
influences,
creative men.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got McEwan's theme. Novel comes out in 81, so it's a fairly recent novel. McEwan's theme is that men and women are inherently incompatible and that no amount of civilization can make up for that. Pinter's theme is that language is a tool we use not to communicate. And he says his theme, which he learned shooting Mishima, is that beauty in and of itself is dangerous, which is why we have to label the podcast explicit on the Apple Store. So I don't know. Where should we start here? Well, first of all, Ray, you just watched some Schraders. Jordan, where are you on Schrader? What's your Schrader?
I watched American Gigolo and Mishima to get going for this, in addition to this film, which I only watched half of. No,
were you a Schrader guy before that? Is he one of your guys?
Schrader's a guy.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
He's not. He's definitely someone whose films I am very interested in watching, and who produced a lot of who got a lot of movies made in a time and sort of in like a zeitgeist that I'm super obsessed with. Like crime movies from the 70s and 80s are something that I've sort of devoured recently, and he's definitely someone who added a lot to that, and there's lots of things that I like about his movies for sure. I think his dialogue is very like unshowy in a way that's really impressive. Yeah, no, I mean this movie is interesting. Yeah, this movie has a lot going on in it.
There's certainly a lot going on. What about you, Ray? Were you a Schrader man prior to this?
I love. I mean, I think I've seen Taxi Driver like as much as I've seen any movie. Like that's a very rewatchable film, and I love the parts where he's just trying to go on dates and just trying to be like a normal guy. Are like really the parts that like just kill me. And I saw Affliction and Autofocus like in the theater. I remember that. I recently, like before you guys got in touch with me, had like a rockin' experience with American Gigolo like 5 weeks ago, where I was just like, I had no idea this movie was like this, and this is just completely like shredding my brain. I love this so much.
Paul Schrader.
Had to. Exactly.
Yeah.
And aside from that, I watched First Reformed and Mishima. And is there something else big I'm missing, Jordan?
I'm trying to think.
I didn't see
There's
Light
definitely
Sleeper.
a lot of
I feel
blind
bad about not
spots for
seeing
me.
Light Sleeper. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of blind spots where I'm like, I'd like to see the canyons. I know that a lot of people like that.
Right. Yeah, I was just okay. And like also like he's around. Like our friend Ben Zeitlin has a screening series in New Orleans, and they just had Schrader come and show Cat People, which I saw I saw Cat People in high school. And was like, this is, and also, okay, in high school, I read that Easy Rider's Raging Bulls book, which he is like the demon of demons. Like, I think
he's
honestly,
he does not come across.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like he made the biggest impression on me. And like in that book, it was like, this is the definitive out of control artist, basically. Where it's like, almost like a serial killer on the loose kind of like behavior.
Yeah, I mean, it's like driving women around recklessly to threaten them into sexual contact with him. Yeah.
Well, it seemed like in that case, it was also just a kiss,
right? As
the story goes, that's
not sure. Somehow makes it maybe even scarier. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I've always thought he's Travis Bickle, right? Like he's basically like that's his autobiography that he wrote as a young man, and then he somehow managed to stay alive and be like a prolific artist, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, he's Travis Bickle with just enough like commercial sense to steer out of the tailspin. Yeah, and fascinating guy. It's interesting you bring up Taxi Driver because he in Schrader on Schrader he says in discussing this movie, I'm very attracted to the idea of a psychological life running just under the surface of normal life and motivating the normal life in subtle ways. It goes back to why does Travis take the girl to the porno movie? It seemingly doesn't make sense, but of course it does make sense. This script is full of that kind of complexity, which is an interesting thing to bring up in the context of this movie, which feels so far from that one.
Yeah, something else that I think makes the movie similar is that I think you guys described Taxi Driver as a film with 4 auteurs.
Yep.
And I do think, when you have a movie that's directed by Paul Schrader, but written by Harold Pinter, who's sort of their own institution, and then you have the score by Badalamenti and the cinematography by
Dante Spinotti.
I was testing you. I didn't forget it. These are strong personalities, strong opinionated choices being made. So I think that's something interesting about the movie, and maybe something that maybe doesn't completely cohere is just the fact that are all those voices like at cross purposes at times in the movie, as the movie plays out.
I think the film has there are some Schrader films that feel messy, and there are some Schrader films that feel extraordinarily controlled and deliberate. And I feel like we're in a run with like American Gigolo and Cat People to a certain extent, and Mishima and Patty Hearst before this. They all feel extremely visually controlled and designed. And then in the middle there, you've got Light of Day, which is a sort of a, I don't know, just a whoopsie.
The exception that proves the rule, the sort of like, it shows how much the other ones are not that.
Right. But then this film opens so powerfully and so like deliberately with you've got the voiceover of the story that is repeated, which apparently that's a Pinter invention structurally. The movie, as far as I can tell, adheres extremely closely to the novel, but with some elisions by Pinter. Like Pinter cuts things out, and also he bookends it with that narration. But the opening is like, we open with the narration and this sort of floating camera through this incredible apartment.
Yeah, you hinted it earlier, but it is this apartment that, it has an amazing view of Venice, but is very clearly designed in this. It's not a real apartment. This is shot at Pathé Studios, but it's like a Orientalist dream of like, reminds me of like southern Spain or these parts of Europe that had
Moorish,
right? Yeah.
I think they were imagining that the apartment was built by a man who made his money trading in goods from. Yeah. I think the other major change from the book is that in the book, the Robert character is a little gruffer, and he's like wears like low cut black t-shirts with like a necklace with a razor blade on it or something. He's like more of a modern Italian kind of tough stereotype, whereas they made him much more of a aristocratic, like fancy man. And the apartment, I think they also made fancier, which is crazy to me because that seems like the whole movie.
But you can kind of see that characterization in the way that he relates to like the workers at the bars.
Right.
The bar.
Yeah.
Like
but to me, that makes it so much more interesting when you have this guy in the white linen suit who then goes into what's like maybe a gay bar.
Yes.
For sure. No, I mean, I think they made the right choice. But that is interesting that was a change.
And yeah, Ian, as you said, the apartment was built in a studio in Rome, and that Venice out the window or off the balcony was like a full 3-dimensional miniature.
Yes.
Which is insanely cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And it gives the whole thing a kind of like impossible geometry, like a dreamy sort of character. Should we do the plot summary so we can just start chopping it up? Do you want to do the honors, Ian?
Be happy to. Yes.
What if we made Jordan do it? No, we'll have Ian do it. You're
I'm sure you would.
I was winding up.
All right, go for it. Go for
do
it.
Do it. I'll do the setup.
Do
the setup.
Right,
How about
yeah, of course.
Set him up, Ian will knock him down.
A beautiful couple from America are visiting Venice. It's their second time in Venice. They were there 2 years ago. It's unclear at first if they have kids. Then we find out that they have kids. And then
one of them has kids.
So it's interesting though the way this information is like unfurled because at first he's like, I'm going to draw the kids, and he draws the crappiest little like charcoal stick drawings of the kids.
Yeah,
They're
me
so
too.
indistinct.
Yeah,
like this is what I think of the children. And then you realize that they're her children from a first marriage, and then we realize what we sort of have already sensed, which is that perhaps they are here to work on the future of their relationship, or perhaps to conceive a child or make plans for the future.
Yeah. Rekindle something, maybe.
And then they get they're like, what should we do? They ask the guy at the front desk, who, by the way, I just also want to say the Coens revolutionized front desk at hotel
with
characters.
Chet.
I was just watching Bad Boys 1, and the doorman at the hotel is named Chet.
Wow, there you go.
There's no way that's not.
There's no way.
No.
Yeah.
No.
He's a huge
great.
Coens fan. Jordan,
exactly.
Ultimate dream guest.
Ooh.
We got to get Bay on.
We got to get Bay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
You got to do some Bayfabe.
To the White Bay.
To the White Bay. Yeah, exactly. They ask the desk guy, what's cool around here? And he's like, it's here on the map, but I can't give you the map. I won't draw you a map.
Yeah, we only have one map left.
You're going to have to get lost. They get lost. They see like a crazy ass diorama of like a man and a woman in bed.
Mm-hmm.
They look like the vodka robots.
They do. Yes.
Yeah.
And then they see a like feminist wheat paste poster that's like kill all men are rapists, and then
all rapists should be castrated.
Yeah, all rapists should be castrated. And then they meet a shadowy Dracula-like figure, yet all in white. Not all, yeah.
Well, you know, Ian and I were texting about how this is a vampire movie.
Yes,
so it's very interesting. That you bring it. He's like Dracula, but he's also like Harry Lime to me in The Third Man, because you get this European city at night, and he pops up so cheekily in this doorway.
Can I make one more point though, just about like just to summarize this, just to put in brackets like the whole thing that I just described, which is that this whole thing is extremely drifting, and the main character Rupert Everett's performance and the sort of style of the film is just a lot about like staring off into nothing. And like it's beautifully lit, and it's like atmospheric, and there's a beauty all around them, but you get a sense that these two characters are miserable and also just have no idea what they're doing or where they're going. And I think if you're not in like a fully caffeinated, charged up state of watching, I think this first act could seem extremely boring. But I also think that it's pretty beautifully done and all to a point. You know, it's all for a purpose.
Right. They're just wandering around waiting to be lured They need some attractive force. Yeah, Ian, do you want to slam this dunk?
Be happy to.
We're big sports guys. You guys
gathered immediately. Yeah, I think this first act is my favorite part of the film. So I'll say that I think the build up is maybe some of the most interesting stuff here. The only thing I'll adjust slightly, although I agree with you that they feel American. I think these may be a British couple. So there's some of the original Americans, if you ask me.
You are correct, sir.
Yes. All right.
They are British. They're talking about their mummy and their children.
Yes,
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. I mean, obviously they're British.
I think I missed that part, honestly.
It's
well, when I look at a picture of Rupert Everett in 1990, it's like looking in a mirror. So I just think
they're from the West.
That's me.
Yeah,
they're distinctly not of the continent.
That's what I was going to say. Honestly, I think it comes to the same point, which is that they feel out of place. They've sought out this sort of European refinement, the romance, the high art, all this stuff. And I think the only other thing worth mentioning is maybe that Robert, the Christopher Walken character, has been threaded in both in sort of like an intercutting to the apartment to hear him tell a story, and because he is taking pictures of them and sort of like wandering behind columns nearby.
Well, we don't know that it's him taking pictures.
You kind of see him. You see him in the distance, like right after the photo is taken. Yeah,
he's like that shadowy Satan figure at the Taylor Swift concert. Do you guys see that picture?
Yes, standing above the stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, just some guy who he's like a custodian or something who just like showed up in silhouette in an empty spot high above a Taylor Swift concert, and a bunch of people on Facebook said, "This is the devil watching Taylor Swift." And anyway, that's what Robert is like.
He basically is, yes. And the story he tells that gets repeated 3 times that's been mentioned already, this Pinter bookcase thing, is a story of...
My father was a very big man.
Yes.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day to all the very big men out there. By the way.
Yes, happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Perfect movie for that day.
Mm-hmm.
What is so important about his dad putting mascara in his mustache? Because that's like, I have it looping in the background here, and like the film cuts to black, cuts to credits when he says mascara, and it's like
a gendered sort of like breakdown of. I mean, he makes a big point about at a later sort of climactic moment of the film, men, they used to be simpler, straightforward. Women could understand them. They knew what they were getting, and they were respected for that. Yeah. And I think
men would put makeup. Men would put women's eye makeup in their beards.
Well, they'd use like simple. A spoolie. They'd use the same little brush.
But I think this is the trick, right? The like constant aristocratic idea that somehow something is fading, something is being lost, and then you actually examine it. And these are like some of the least traditionally masculine people you can imagine. So it's sort of a ridiculous idea.
The color of the beard was fading at the time. Like it was always the artifice was always there, and he doesn't
gray.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All right, so they get lost, as Jordan was saying. This is our standard traveler's experience, and they spend the night outside. They wake up, they're miserable, and it's a little bit surreal. There's these school children running by, and
they go.
Whoops! We didn't.
Wait, they go to his bar.
We skipped like
into
the film. All right,
one of the big scenes.
Yeah. While they're lost, Robert supposedly finds them, and says he's gonna like bring them to this place with this wonderful Venetian food.
Yeah.
And he takes them there, and the cook is out, and he makes this big...
The cook is sick.
Expression of like, I can't believe this.
Snapping grissini.
Yes, little grissini breadsticks. And Natasha Richardson is miserable, and it's unclear like what Rupert Everett's relationship is with this guy who's telling this like too indulgent story that they're not maybe interested in listening to, and they're drinking wine on an empty stomach, and we're like cutting around the room to these groups of men who are maybe gay, and this woman who is like lost in some type of personal stress, and it is just this constant anxiety without quite knowing like what the genesis or the focus of this is. And then they leave the bar, and that's when they spend the night outside because they can't find their way back to the hotel. They wake up, they try to go get some coffee.
And Natasha Richardson got sick too.
Yes.
She gets a migraine, but there's something very like fairy tale about it, where they sort of...
It is, like a poison apple
asleep.
Or something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering even at this point in the movie whether she's been drugged.
I also thought that for a little bit. Yeah. But then...
Well, this also returns us a little bit to one of the questions about Patty Hearst and about Natasha Richardson's maybe just like delivery, which is that in Patty Hearst, well, in the real life, one of the first films, when Patty Hearst was delivering the taped messages saying like I'm okay, they haven't hurt me or whatever, people thought she was drugged because of the way her voice sounded, and her parents had to say no, she just kind of talks like that.
Yes, yep.
And I feel like both in that film and here, Natasha Richardson just has a kind of
dreamy,
blissed out delivery, where it sounds like she's drugged or maybe just like not that complicated in her mind or something. Well, so there is I
think the film is kind of playing with that. I mean, I want to finish up quickly, but I think it is sort of challenging us to, because there's this sense of their relationship, and they're both kind of on edge, and Colin is kind of condescending to her, saying that she repeated the same thing she said last time they were in Venice, and that she
said that about the church last time.
Wants to talk about her kids, and he's sort of like uninterested. So I don't know if we're actually meant to think that she's less intellectual or less intelligent, but I think the film is certainly thinking that some of the other characters might believe this about her, which I think is
well said.
Anyway, so they wake up, they try to go get coffee. In typical vacation fashion, all of these obstacles sort of drive them towards maybe the conclusion of their relationship, right? They're like arguing, they're, regretting going on this trip. And then Robert sees them again and says, what are you doing? And they say, oh, we spent the night outside. And he claims that he feels responsible for this, and he's going to insist that they follow him to his home. And at this point, I think we have a clearer sense of dread about like what his intentions are.
Right, they do too. They're like, "Oh my god, it's that fucking guy!"
Right,
like don't look at him.
Yeah, although it's unclear whether they just think he's sort of like too much. Basically, he's just like overbearing or something. I don't know.
Right,
but they wake up in his house, in his palatial house, and we get this incredible shot of them both half naked, and there's maybe somebody watching them. And we drift back through the home, and they wake up, and suddenly Natasha Richardson's character feels great, and they're sort of attracted to each other again, and they can't find their clothes, but it's a little bit funny because now they're well rested, and suddenly all those points of conflict are gone.
Right.
Then we meet.
There's an erotic sort of restarting as well. Like the pilot light is back on.
Right. And then we meet Helen Mirren's character in the film. And she's a further wrench in everything because she was the one who was watching them. So the voyeurism was not just from the viewers' sides. And
she took their clothes to wash.
Yeah, but is also kind of like enjoying the fact that they're both half naked. One's in a dressing gown, and tries to talk to Mary, Natasha Richardson's character, about how attractive Colin is and how uninteresting women are by themselves, and how you really need the presence of a man to sort of drive things. And that's where conflict and passion comes from. And she sort of begs them to stay for dinner. To make things a little bit faster here, they stay for dinner. Christopher Walken's character makes fascist dinner party comments about how England has a better idea of how to put down communist poofs, and he punches Colin in the stomach, seemingly either for like a masculine challenge or just for him disrespecting the idea of fathers or something. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, he says your house is a museum to the men in your life. And
there was a scene early where Walken gives this whole monologue about when his sisters fed him all the chocolate and the lemonade and tied him up. I mean, I feel like that's when I remember the film, I remember that monologue that Walken gives, and I remember Mirren being like, I saw you guys asleep. Yeah. And I want to share with you how happy I am that I saw you asleep. Yeah. Like those two moments are like the blockbuster moments of the film, I think.
Yes.
Walken did that monologue in one take, apparently.
Really?
He insisted that's going to have to be performed like on stage.
Wow.
Basically.
I think it's really great because this is the same monologue that the film opens with, but the opening version is sort of like slow and, I don't know, like orchestral in its retelling, and he's like taking
chopped
his time
a little bit.
And then when he actually tells it to them in the bar, it's more matter of fact, and he, again, the crux of the story that Ray mentioned is when he was a kid, basically he told on his sisters because he was afraid of his dad. And then his sisters took their revenge by feeding him all this, I couldn't tell if it was like candy and alcohol or some type of drug, and then locking him in their father's study so he would vomit and piss and shit everywhere.
They did wedding crashers on him.
They did. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then
his father said, Robert, have you been eating chocolate?
That's right.
No question mark. I guess he did take the punctuation out of the script.
Yeah, he's in Wedding Crashers. Christopher Walken is in Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you guys know the story about him? I think Bradley Cooper told this story on like Graham Norton or something. Christopher Walken is not discussed on any show more than he is on the Graham Norton show. I don't know why, but Cooper tells the story about working with Christopher Walken, who's his own kind of like meme, right? Uh-huh. Like, you know, people love to tell Christopher Walken stories. And apparently Rachel McAdams, I guess, was like nervous about the dancing scene. And he's a beautiful dancer, Walken. And so I guess to put her at ease, he was dancing with her. She's playing his daughter. He's dancing with her and he just starts saying to her, I farted. I'm farting. So
while he's doing beautiful balletic movements, that's great.
No, I farted. So
he probably picked that up from the Pennies from Heaven set. I think maybe that was something that was I don't know. I just or somewhere
looks
I don't
like
know.
A fragrant set.
It just seems like something. It actually seems like kind of like an old Hollywood technique that he like stole from someone.
Some vaudevillian knew to do it. Yeah.
Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly.
I'm farting.
Yeah.
I 1000%. I'm actually going to say it was Gene Kelly. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah. Gene Smelly. Anyway. Yeah. There's something going on there. But yeah, there's this incredible monologue about like the violence among siblings
and we haven't mentioned that his father was an ambassador in London, which is why he speaks English, and that's where sort of all this very arcane behavior comes from, seemingly.
And his wife is Canadian also.
Yes, also the daughter of a diplomat, I think, right?
That story ends with him meeting his daughter as an 11-year-old, and she's the only woman that's sympathetic to him.
His wife, yeah.
Sorry, his wife, sorry.
I know I had just watched The First Omen. Good film, by the way. Good movie. Check it out.
I've heard very good things.
It's really cool, but it did occur to me that like one of the most famous children of an ambassador involved in Italy in some way in cinema is Damien, the son of the devil. Like there's something very demonic about diplomats' children. We'll have to get to it. But
we will. Yeah, we will.
Ian, finish the plot.
All right, so then they go home.
Longest plot summary in the history. I guess it's sort of a To the White Sea special. You guys don't miss any details.
No, it's true. You do a wonderful job. So then they return to their hotel, sort of frightened by the whole experience of having dinner, and now their relationship is really back on track. They're
at the Hotel Bone Zone.
Yeah, they are. They close the shutters.
It's actually the Hotel Garibaldi, which is the same hotel from Don't Look Now. So it's a famous place to have sex in a hotel.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And I have to say, watching this, the first half of the movie, I was thinking it's actually good that it's cast with two actors who don't have a lot of chemistry between them. Like that was my initial thought. And then when they flip the switch and they're in this just sort of like horniness maelstrom, I'm buying it.
Yeah.
Rupert and Vanessa, they get into it.
Yeah.
They really do. And by the way, it's the Hotel Gabrielli. I said the wrong name, but
it's the Hotel
Schrader
American actually.
It's the Hotel American. Schrader says that in the script, Pinter had just written like they fuck for 2 days or whatever, and he said, "Well, I need more than this. Like I can't just direct from that." And so he was sending Pinter messages like, "I need some pages for this." Pinter wasn't getting back to him, so he writes the pages himself, and then he sends them to Pinter for his notes, and Pinter gets back to him in like 10 minutes and rewrites his notes.
Wow.
That's interesting because like the room service next to the door, like those actually feel a little bit more like Schrader beats.
It's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of the questions, he asks about like what it's like to be the girl when you're having sex. Yeah, it does feel like a Schrader question. Yeah.
She had a good answer.
She did. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sticks her tongue in his ear is the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
And anyway, so after this beautiful like blue re-encounter that they have, then they
reminded me of I mean the episode is now just us interrupting the plot summary, I think.
That's fine.
That glow is very Vertigo to me. The like green coming, blue-green coming through the window. Very Vertigo in my estimation. He also wanted to differentiate it from Don't Look Now. He was like the colors are shifted from all the colors he identified in the Venice of Don't Look Now.
What is your guys like Don't Look Now take in general? Like that's like the Venice movie, right? Like I feel like I've been to Venice, I've watched Don't Look Now, and I've played Tomb Raider 2. And those are my like three primary Venice experiences.
There's also, I mean, I think the first time I saw a lot of Venice on screen was Casino Royale because of my age.
Finale.
And then there's also, of course, The Tourist.
Whoa.
With Johnny Depp and Angelina Jolie, which I fell asleep during on an airplane.
Whoa.
And Death in Venice.
That's the only other piece of art.
Yeah,
and it's
that's
many
one
adaptations.
that Schrader identifies a lot. The film, the Visconti film of Death in Venice.
But Don't Look Now is incredible, right?
It is.
Don't Look Now
truly
is
incredible.
It's the movie for that city.
And it makes you feel like you're there. Like if you've never been to Venice, Don't Look Now makes you feel like you're on the ground. Like it gives it incredibly
like
tactile, visceral experience watching that movie. Yeah.
And it's all made to serve the themes. Exactly. So it's
about getting lost. It's about running into the same, like wondering if you're running into the same figures over and over again.
Yep.
It's about this kind of like, everyone seems to be a tourist. How does anyone live here? Is this not just, I mean, when I went to Venice and then our flight was through Dublin. So we spent the night in Dublin, and like a cab driver from the airport or something said, "Where are you coming from?" We said Venice, and the way he described it, he was like, "Oh yeah, I did that once. It was okay, but I wouldn't do it a second time." People talk about it like it's Vegas, but it's like this ancient, enchanting city as opposed to the place that has like a really big Whataburger,
right?
And I don't know. There's Venice is it's. I mean, we should get to it, but I think Don't Look Now gets at that. It's also to have an English couple absent their children, in the hotel room,
dealing with like changes in their relationship that they're trying to resolve.
Yeah, having a lot of sex.
Yep.
You know what? I do have a question for the panel.
Okay.
The famous sex scene in Don't Look Now where like Warren Beatty got really mad because he thought that they were having sex for real. That doesn't look like they're having sex for real.
Is that a real story? About? I don't know this.
That's a real story.
Come
Apparently
on.
He got mad because he assumed that Julie Christie was actually abed with Donald Sutherland, and this story has been repeated that it's one of the most realistic sex scenes, and it's like it goes on for a long time. I guess it's more realistic than sex scenes than like From Here to Eternity or something, but it's not.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. It still looks like a movie to me. Maybe what he's revealing is that Julie Christie is doing a lot more performance with him, than maybe I don't know. Do you guys agree? The panel is recoiling from this question.
Agree or disagree?
I think it'd be annoying to see Donald Sutherland kissing your girlfriend.
It would, sure. No, that's true. It would be annoying to see that. That's fair.
Yeah.
Jordan?
I've never seen Don't Look Now. I've been avoiding answering any of these queries, but it's just it wasn't on the syllabus, guys.
It's good. You should check it out.
I've heard it's great.
Have you seen The Witches?
I have seen The Witches.
Same director.
That's true.
Yeah, Nick Roeg.
Right.
Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah.
Robert Zemeckis should make Don't Look Now. I think that'd be great.
Should. That would be cool.
That's the remake.
Ooh, yeah.
With two of the Beatles from his unmade Yellow Submarine movie. Two of the models.
Yeah, you should do a motion capture Bad Timing also.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mars Needs Bad Timing. He didn't direct. He just produced that. Anyway, did Mars Needs Moms come up on
I don't know which episode.
The last episode, or was it a few ago?
It came up in my movie trivia night.
Wow.
Interesting.
What's happening?
So was it like, what's the losingest film produced by the Walt Disney Company?
It was like recognize the film, and there was just a very strange shot of like a close up of glasses, and there was like some weird like ant-like character, and someone was like, "That looks like a Zemeckis shot. That must be Mars Needs Moms." Spoiler for the weeks ago movie trivia night.
Yes,
it wasn't Mars Needs Moms. It was a shot from The Ant Bully.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the moms are like an aunt bully
when they're not your mom.
Yeah.
Should
I think that's Don't Look Now talk. What happens in the film, Ian? I'm enjoying this structure. We should.
Me too. So then they go out for like a normal outing for maybe one of their last days in Venice, and they end up accidentally getting off the I'm sure you could tell me what this is. Okay. Perfect. Like not
the little
gondola.
It's the water bus. Yes, the water taxis are very expensive. This is the water bus that's like $2.
And they do this to like save 10 minutes of the trip, and then they discover that they're directly in front of Robert and Carolyn's house again. Carolyn sees them, calls them in. They find out that the couple is like moving out, which is bizarre because they saw them 2 days ago
selling things. Yeah.
And Carolyn, who experiences back pain, has a moment alone with Mary and reveals that this is from extremely violent sadomasochistic sex that she has with Robert, to the point where he once broke her back. And in the meantime, Robert
has another way that I'm the Robert of the podcast here because of my prowess.
That's right. Yes, I discovered that I deserve to be punished, and that's why I hang around you. So Robert takes Colin to his bar, and sort of independently, both pairs are becoming sort of like more hostile and strange. And Robert makes jokes to the other like Venetian workers that he passes about him and Colin being a couple. And at home, Carolyn is telling Mary about this attraction they feel and reveals all these photographs that Robert has taken of Colin specifically, and says
1 hour photo style.
Yes, it's true. Yes, very much.
This is also I was reminded of Funny Games. This is another movie about how you should actually just be rude to people when you're uncomfortable. Like if don't go into somebody's house just because it's nice.
Right.
Yeah.
I was surprised that it wasn't revealed that he had been stalking them or taking pictures of them since they were in Venice 2 years ago.
Oh, sure.
I just thought like, oh, that's like a hanging thread. That would make sense. Like he was like, it went back further, but just a little punch up.
No,
for the remake.
Don't disagree.
Harold, if you're listening from Beyond the Grave.
So anyway, then Carolyn has given Mary some tea that is having strong effects on her, and she's unable to speak. Robert and Colin arrive. Colin's trying to figure out what's wrong with her and why nobody's doing anything about this. And he says that, he'll do anything if they'll help her. And Robert and Carolyn sort of push him up against the wall and say, okay, this is what we want you to do. And she pulls his zipper down, and Robert takes out a straight razor, and slits his throat. And the end of the film is just sort of like the Italian police investigating, and seemingly Robert
very
has
hostily interrogating Richardson.
It's
and
true.
she says we were going to get married. She makes the decision maybe now that the door is closed.
Yeah,
she has to identify the body as well, which is
right.
Now she feels much more sort of like unadulterated affection for him, and we
fixes his hair. It's been combed the wrong way.
And we haven't mentioned that on top of all this like storytelling of Robert's, his wife sort of mentions that maybe some of this is embellished and adds to the sense of like
right
theatricality or.
There's also that moment which is extremely well delivered by Mirren, where they're about to leave after the first dinner, I guess, and she says, please come back. You have to come back.
Yeah.
And then like very quietly to Colin says, I can't leave. And it's like, it's unclear if she means because of her back or because of her husband.
I think both McEwan and Pinter, like this is a real collab line from them because, Pinter's plays are full of these sentences that it's unclear whether you mean this in the most menacing way possible or you just mean like, I'm going to take you somewhere and only one of us is going to come back, or something. And it's
yeah. And then the film ends with Walken with Robert telling the police. They ask him like, what happened, and he starts with, "Let me tell you this: my father was a very big man."
Yeah.
That's
his same.
Well, they make an interesting point, which is like, from the perspective of a detective. You got the airline tickets, you settled your affairs, you could have gotten away with it, and then you put your fingerprints all over this straight razor. And then his answer is like, my dad loved to shave and we weren't allowed to leave.
Yeah.
And couldn't speak until you were spoken to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions we could go with this. I immediately identified it as, it's one of those movies where, and specifically one of those roles, the Robert role, where the character, like, it's not explicitly, he's not the devil explicitly, but he is, like, he's not Louis C. from Angel Heart with Robert De Niro, but he's like a Dracula, as you said, Jordan, or like Satan, where he seems he's got a little bit too much power, like he's traveling a little too far too quickly sometimes. Seems to be 100 steps ahead of everybody. You can never get a straight answer out of him. I love characters like this.
It kind of reminds me of something we talked about on the show when we were talking about Charlie Meadows in Barton Fink. Just like that, he's not right. He is the devil, but also he's sort of just like this demon who, while he does represent like demonic, malevolent evil, also has his own shit going on. Like, he's tortured.
Sure.
He's wounded and things upset him. He's not just there just to ruin your life. He's also there because he's got a lot of things he's trying to work out.
Right. He's a devil in distress. There's, I don't know, what angle should we take on first, Ian? I did want to read actually this one of the, I never remember this. Is it an epigram when it's at the beginning? What's the thing at the beginning of a text, the quotation at the beginning of a text called?
We've talked about it so many times, now I can't remember if it's epigram or epigraph. I want to say the latter, but I can't say for sure.
It's one of those quotes from the beginning of a book, that's for sure. And this is a guy named Cesare Pavese that McEwan quotes at the beginning of the novel. He says, "Traveling is a brutality. It forces you to trust strangers and to lose sight of all that familiar comfort of home and friends. You are constantly off balance. Nothing is yours except the essential things: air, sleep, dreams, the sea, the sky, all things tending towards the eternal, or what we imagine of it," which I think is present in the film. Certainly there's like it doesn't seem like that good of a trip, if I'm being honest. It seems like an unpleasant vacation even before the razor killing. And I think there's a way that, like, traveling, especially as a British or American person, as a person of the Anglo-speaking sort of present imperial complex, when we go to places like Italy, these sort of old cultured places, and Schrader identifies this as like a tradition in British literature or like Northern European literature of somebody going to a hotter, more exotic place to like discover something about themselves. So Death in Venice is an example of this.
Right. Often a sexual element involved.
Yes, exactly. He lists a bunch of others.
There's that movie Till the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Where Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, it's like explicitly stated that he can only have sex when he's on vacation.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's like a very important character detail.
Yeah. And there's a way of like, there's this sense of looking to find like maybe forgotten knowledge or like some truth that you can't arrive at in your own country, which I always, and specifically it feels like, America is on the move, right? Or America's like making the new stuff. It's where things are happening now. And then when you travel somewhere else, you're looking at how things used to be, especially with Italy, obviously. It's got the whole association with being the prior empire, the former empire. And like, I think in the film is both arguing, Ian, as you've said, that like, these guys are just fascists. They're just like scumbags who have inherited a nice apartment from 900 years of fathers and grandfathers.
And maybe feel the biggest weight of like what they could lose by some type of new order.
Right. And also, like, just because there's beautiful art on the wall, that doesn't mean that these people know anything more about the human condition than you do. And it honestly made me want to just like go to the Grand Canyon or something next time. Like, let's go look at like a big rock that looks good instead of trying to find the truth in another culture.
Yeah. Instead of looking for the beautiful in like a human history, you kind of look for the sublime in nature.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. See a waterfall or something like that. Waterfalls can't slit your throat with a razor.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Can they?
I think that the waterfall can do a lot, actually.
Oh, yeah. Don't underestimate the
maybe
waterfall.
Not with a razor, but
with
I feel
like a sharp rock, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just, I mean, you've seen those jets of water that they use to cut tile or whatever?
Sure.
That'll cut your head right off.
Yeah, the water jets are crazy.
Yeah, look out, everybody.
Yeah, PSA. Yeah.
Before you see Don't Look Now, go check out some like 40-minute video about a guy's water jet.
Yeah, where they get the ballistic gel from Mythbusters and they fill it with pig bones and then they send it under the water jet.
Yeah. Now I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah. So yes, I agree that I think it's a particularly good contrast because you have this sense of like, to me, post mid-century couple, right? So it's not just the sort of like World War II era husband-wife frustrations. Now it brings in what I feel like are like late 80s, early 90s sense of ennui and sort of like this idea that maybe we've tried to push ourselves to be more evolved, but we end up sort of like, circling a relationship in a similar way and still can't find meaning. And we go seek it out. And instead of finding this like high romance, Renaissance era clarity or truth, what we discover is just a much darker sense of deviance, like inherited weight of belief and like cultural superiority and condescension to anything that isn't part of this lineage, and is in fact much scarier than just like trying to figure out if you are actually in love with somebody or whether your relationship has a future. And obviously maybe it doesn't take the form of having your throat slit in real life, but I like the idea. I mean, I was thinking about Natasha Richardson's personal lineage. Her parents, obviously, Vanessa Redgrave, who's in The Devils, which I think of as like a great film about scary old world Europe and what like sexual deviance looks like behind extremely ornate doors. And then her father, who made like, kitchen sinky style frustrations about modern life type realism. So I think it's cool to see how they collide here and come up with a sense of like maybe our concerns about the present have made us blind to some of the terrors of the past or something. I did have a question, which is that obviously associated with this generational moment, so your like Reality Bites or your this type of film where people feel like they're made complacent because the world has made them aware of how meaningless their actions are or something. Is that realism, you think, based on what this movie says? Is that like the idea that there are these forces beyond your control that maybe operate on other real guiding things in your life? Or is that ceding of control, is that just like giving up any sense of change or any sense of power? I wasn't quite sure what the film is telling us, so I was curious. Is this realism or is this like abdication of responsibility? What do you guys think?
It's an interesting question.
Maybe one way to think about it is this movie's at the changing over from the 80s to the 90s, and American Gigolo is sort of takes place right at the end of the 70s going into the 80s, and it's interesting to think about what how these characters are trapped in different ways, and like what their relationships are to romantic relationships, because it seems like Richard Gere has a similar, or he has a type of ennui that has to do with sort of constantly being objectified. And then it seems like something that they gesture towards in this movie is that Rupert Everett's character isn't aware of how attractive he is.
His little speech that he gives in the restaurant.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Everyone's looking at him.
He's so aloof in this film in general. And just even the relationship dilemma that they have, which is that she has these kids from a previous relationship. And she's always like, do you really want to settle down and just become like the dad to these kids and just like, basically enter into my adult life in motion, you know? And he's just like, oh, he's like a statuesque man, you know, like in every single film he's in, he's kind of a scene stealer just because he's like such a physical object. And the way that she's kind of like, I don't know, doesn't this guy have somewhere better to be? Like that's her anxiety the entire time. And then this older couple is so in love with him. Like he's so the object of desire in this movie from all three people. And kind of alien, kind of just like, just kind of like
his neck is so long. Yeah. He looks like he's beautiful, but also sort of freakish in how much of a specimen he is. Like there's something, it's not like has the perfect version of every body part. He's got like weird ones.
He's like an awesome gay dude. I mean, like that's also just interesting. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I mean,
there's the question also of like his sexuality. He exudes such a non-hetero, like no one whose body looks like that presumably can be heterosexual, especially in 1990, prior to the Marvel sort of personal trainer and steroid complex.
I mean, the question coming from outside the movie is, did they cast him because they knew that he was someone who was sort of, you know, let's say towing the line at that point? And then the question inside the movie is, multiple times characters seem to say to him, why did you go into this? Why did you go back? Why did you accept the invite?
Right. You know? Right.
It's like the best they can come up with is, I didn't want to be rude.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe he doesn't know.
But maybe he doesn't know, or maybe there is something that he wants you know.
What's it like to be the girl?
And the other thing too is I'm looking through my notes and I wrote down at like 30 minutes in, I was like, I just hope this isn't going to be a Straw Dogs movie. And in some sense it is, but you know, it is just slightly more, I guess, interesting or even, I guess, palatable for Rupert Everett's character to be like the target of this malevolence as opposed to the more vulnerable wife character. I don't know if that makes sense.
The first thing he does when he gets into the walk-in Mirren household is he puts on this lady's nightdress, like, and she says he looks like a god in it, but like there is something gender fluid about the look, you know.
He doesn't get it. He doesn't get why he looks so good in it.
Yeah.
But he does. Right. It fits him perfectly. Yeah. He looks amazing.
It fits him better than it fits her later.
Yeah. He's the opposite of
an American Gigolo.
Judy Kay, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Although, you know, let's be clear. Everybody looks great.
Yes.
I don't want anyone listening to this to feel bad about how they looked in the movie The Comfort of Strangers. I'm proud of all of you.
I'm just saying, I think it was tailored for Rupert Everett by the costumer.
By Giorgio Armani.
I was going to say,
they said that they weren't doing movies anymore, but for Paul in Italy, they'll come back.
Badalamenti, Armani, Spinotti.
Yeah. Some of
heavy hitters.
Italian heavy hitters, yeah. It's up there. They're up there with Gabagool, Soprazat, Mortadell, you know?
Can you imagine Paul Schrader like having a conversation with Rupert Everett, like the two of them?
I mean, honestly, yeah, I think he was kind of, especially at the time, like he was a real dandy. Like you see photos of him on set. He's wearing like a beautifully tailored suit.
Whoa.
Yeah, he dressed to the nines, at least at the time. Not quite as much anymore. I think just in his he's going for comfort at this point. But yeah, I had a sort of a tag on question, which is, there's like the class anxiety in the film because, you know, American Gigolo is so much about performing elegance and refinement in order to keep money coming in. Mm-hmm. Like he's accompanying these extraordinarily wealthy women, so he has to look the part, but he's at a level of precarity that they have like never experienced. And in this movie, you know, part of traveling that I always feel is like the way that this is descended from the kind of grand tour.
Yes.
That like
the origins of vacation
lads,
being like upper middle class. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That you would go to the continent to like see where the guys you read in the classics department at Cambridge wrote these poems or whatever. And then you'd come back to invent a new kind of slavery or whatever. And you know, they're staying at this very expensive hotel. Their clothes look terrific, but there's that moment where she asks him if they can end the vacation early, and he says, "Well, the plane tickets are already paid for," which was shocking to me because like I just assumed that they were extraordinarily rich. Like, I mean, and Don't Look Now, you're like, what? How are they? He's like helping to restore an old church. Like, can there be that much money in this?
His professional life is a lot less like detailed than hers is. Actually, she actually tells a very interesting story about the women's acting group breaking up,
right?
And it sort of relates also to like an anecdote that she told about childhood where she got kicked out of a group. Whereas like, do we know like what he does for a living? I mean, we see him messing around with a manuscript in like one shot, but that's that's about it.
Saying like, I haven't read the whole thing yet. Leave me alone. Yeah. But it is it's kind of like thinly sketched. Yeah, I sort of saw most of that stuff about their background to me as like setting for them to be able to engage in their back and forth, and for us to get a sense of, I mean, the Pinter dialogue I think is really wonderful, where people are, like you said, not communicating Jake, and they sort of like rephrase things in a way that I associate with this period of film. Somebody mentioned Linklater earlier. This is also like Before Sunrise and Before Sunset to me, where, you know, people are like trying to speak and figure out what they're saying, and we're supposed to be interested in what they're trying to communicate, but also maybe their failure to fully communicate like what they want to say, or the other person is hearing what they are wanting to hear. I mean, she's trying to talk about like missing her kids, and he says like, well, didn't you talk to them yesterday? And, you know, like clearly just have no sense of each other's concerns about the world. Right. So
yeah, but in the Before movies, they love to talk. Yeah. In these movies, it's almost like all the characters hate to talk.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was sort of taken aback when he gets into his thighs and buttocks conversation, where it's like, this guy's thinking about anything. Like, this guy has like a little like tight five he does on, like, you ever notice how there's lots of words for tits and ass, but there's only one word for thighs?
But I like, it's like, I mean, his second point is more interesting, but like he spends like 2.5 minutes trying to articulate this, and Natasha Richardson's like listening and like what are you talking about? What point are you trying to make besides the fact that you keep giving me all these synonyms for ass? And then she's sort of like, oh, I get, like, fine. But I don't know, that's to me the type of conversation that I do feel like is sprinkled in the first half of the movie, which is why I think the second half is that much more of a surprise.
Yeah.
What about the scene where she says, I would cut your arms and legs off, and then...
Oh, yeah, she goes like boxing Helena mode.
Yeah, she does, yeah.
Yeah, which, like, that's when they're... I mean, I think there is that element of the kind of the near miss, the close shave, danger-wise, where that sort of rekindles the passions.
Yeah, it's like a crash or a sex lies and videotape.
Yeah, exactly. Where all of a sudden... they realize that they're not going to live forever, and that they're, you know, they get a little perspective because they meet a weird guy, and that's what keeps them just absolutely chapping each other in every direction. And I mean, that's too much. Look, I don't want to. That seems like too much having sex. I feel like they're gonna hurt themselves. They're gonna be all kinds of sore.
They got olive oil in Italy. You know, there's all sorts of, you know.
Yep.
They got a lot of They got
moisturizer. It's okay.
They do. I don't know. There was the bar of soap in my Venice hotel room. The most grimy soap residue I've ever been left with. No offense. Thanks for providing the soap, but like, Jesus, it was like, I mean, to bring up Dune 2 again, it was like those shields. I felt like only a slow knife could penetrate the soap scum that was left on my hands. Yeah, I mean, what were we talking about? They're fucking.
They're sex fantasies. Is
this movie sex negative, do you think?
No, I think it's about the fact that they have different.
No, it makes sex like fun.
And that they're not ultimately compatible with each other. They have such different fantasies.
Right. Is it kink negative? Is it, I mean, I watched Atonement last night because I'd never seen it, and that's the big McEwan film. And since then, he's been adapted many times, I think, trying to get some of that Atonement money. But that movie also has like the Saoirse Ronan character in it is so terrified by sexuality that she like destroys a man's life.
But I think that it's sort of like sex negative. Don't you think? It's sort of like the fear of this is more
sex negativity.
Hurtful than anything else.
Yeah, the problem is the characters don't know what they want.
Yeah,
or the act of articulating what they want is like ultimately destructive.
Right.
For them.
Yeah.
Or for, someone else.
Ian's leaning in.
So I have one kind of big take on this movie, which is that this movie is a Schrader narrative and a Schrader character seen from the outside. So like Christopher Walken's character throughout the entire movie, and then in his like final act of violence is the Schrader protagonist, and then Rupert Everett is sort of just this like passerby who gets caught up in it.
We're closed off from Walken's diary or his journal.
When we do get voiceover, it's from him.
Interesting.
It's not from anyone else.
So it'd be like First Reformed, but if Cedric the Entertainer was the protagonist?
What do you mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
what do you mean if?
The film, yeah.
I mean...
Mishima from the perspective of like a guard at the base.
Right.
But we kind of get that in Mishima actually when the speech fails, or when he goes to the leftists. Like I was thinking this might be too far afield, but just because I just watched Mishima today is like, It's interesting to compare the way that Mishima, the character, is so hyped up because he's talking to like his own people, and also because he does so well in press conferences when he's like sort of affecting this like bourgeois mask. But then when he goes out there and he actually says what he believes, the audiences are just like, yeah, get out of here. I mean, part of it is that he didn't bring, like a PA, like just like always bring a Beats pill if you're trying to overthrow a government. But
huge takeaway.
But they didn't have the beat. Yeah.
So, but my contrast, my compare and contrast is Dog Day Afternoon, where like Pacino knows to say Attica, like like when he gets the mic, he's actually capable of like riling up a proscenium of like random people on the street. And like, I mean, that's like one of the great things about that movie is how he's actually good at parts of the plan, he actually makes a lot of people like get on his side.
What's, I think your comparison is a very compelling one, because I'm realizing that like basically what happens to bring on the tragic conclusion of this film is that Rupert Everett essentially sees Mishima speaking on the balcony and decides to go up there.
But not even out of genuine interest, out of like fear of being impolite, basically.
Yeah, funny game style.
I couldn't hear you that well. I mean,
Yeah. Let's go see what this guy has to say. He seems. I mean, he's obviously very passionate.
Cemetery Island, you say? Tell me about it.
Yeah, and tell me, where did your father and your grandfather get their hair cut in the same place or different places? That part is so disturbing. Just like a man who's so comfortable not answering your question.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy that aspect of the like rigidity of narcissism, sort of like not yielding to whatever is around it. It's like, doesn't matter who he's talking to. He's just basically like expressing the thing he wants to express. And it's funny to see another character who's the object of like you're saying, a lot of adoration in the movie. He is the Sybil Shepherd or the Jodie Foster character. Yes.
Colin is.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. You guys know about Schrader's gay bar experiences. Do you guys know about this? You heard about this?
I don't.
Okay, so Schrader...
do you remember that scene in American Gigolo when he visits the gay bar?
Yeah.
Yes. So Schrader, he talks in Schrader on Schrader about how growing up, his father like never hugged them. He didn't have any kind of positive physical contact really with anyone, with his family especially. And so when he moved to Los Angeles, he discovered going to gay bars and taking his shirt off and dancing around and holding other men as like a way to experience physical contact.
Homer Simpson style.
Yeah.
Yes.
He kind of has a Homer Simpson look.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you think about it, Homer with glasses on.
Uh-huh.
But he has expressed several times, including like recently on Facebook, that he never went all the way and had a sexual encounter with a man and wonders if that would have been like if he should have done that. Basically,
all he needed.
Was too,
right.
He was too scared.
May have freed him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have these movies, I guess. So I guess I'm rooting for the man's unresolved.
I mean, William Friedkin made really
pain.
some similar movies, and
yeah, he did.
And
I did. Billy Friedkin's the other guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important point to bring up, because it's not even the sense that like Walken's character definitely represents some form of homosexuality. He represents, in this sort of like Salo as an easy point of comparison, sort of like everything that is forbidden is now one. So that includes like absolute fascistic expression of violence against a person. It also includes what we would probably call like fairly healthy gay romance. So it's all sort of in this like awful mix, and part of the appeal of it is how strongly they resist it beyond those closed doors. So obviously you get his discussion when they're at the dinner party of saying like, you know, you're not a communist poof, are you? And I will say that having been in a foreign country for a long enough time, anybody who says they're a big fan of your country and also has like a too nice house is going to be the most psychotic person that you've ever met in your whole life. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they got princes just walking around there still.
Yeah.
Who are holding on to the title somehow. Italy, a lovely place to visit, but it's fucked up. They got some fucked up stuff going on over there.
Yeah.
In my opinion. No offense to anybody listening from Italy.
I'm an Italian citizen.
Are you really?
Whoa.
I am. Nice. Is it through like
the power of your last name?
Okay.
Yeah. They heard my last name and they said, "Here's your passport.
Get in here. So, come on."
No offense, Ray. Then. Yeah. I mean, I would move to Italy in a heartbeat, to be clear.
Yeah.
But I would probably associate with different people than Robert.
It is funny to get in arguments with people about right of return, and it's like, you know, they really do let a lot of people return if you just ask nicely.
Right.
Yeah, dude, we got to. All right, let's talk about this a little bit, because both McEwan and Harold Pinter could not stop writing opinion pieces for The Guardian about Israel. They
true.
Really?
were basically
recently
obsessed with it.
Well,
not
in
Pinter.
The past.
Yeah.
When did Pinter die? Like 2008 or something?
Yeah, 2008, I think.
Oh, okay.
But they were both big. They were big political hat throwers in,
but on distinctly different sides of the issue.
Yeah. So basically, to summarize it, Ian McEwan was best friends with Christopher Hitchens, and Hitchens hated Pinter. So that's sort of where they square up. But like, so Pinter's a Jewish man from like a Jewish neighborhood of Hackney, I think, and he went to this boarding school, or not a boarding school, like a public school in Hackney that's famous for most of London's Jewish boys went there, and like half the teachers were Jewish and the other half were anti-Semites. And I was reading but Pinter becomes a powerful critic of U.S. imperialism, so much so that he wants, I think with good instincts on the one hand, through his support behind Slobodan Milosevic.
I also saw this. Yeah, that was
NATO bombing.
That was a twist.
Cool. Hell yeah!
I mean, it's a sort of a broken clock situation with the
like a reverse broken clock. I mean, yeah, because he had opposed. Yeah. He was like a nuclear disarmament guy, anti-apartheid guy, and then
you're talking about Pinter.
I'm talking about Pinter. Yeah,
yeah,
not
anti-apartheid.
Yeah,
By the way, Ian. This reminded me, wasn't your AOL screen name Slobodan Mimosa, bitch?
It was not. No.
Which I always thought was in poor taste. Clever, but,
Yeah.
It's too many characters, I think.
Yeah, it may have been.
Untenable.
But Pinter like signed the mission statement of something called Jews for Justice for Palestine. He was and very against the Iraq War, like, pretty what seems like fairly obvious stuff, but seems not not so obvious to many famous.
Yeah, to other authors at the time who were opposed to him getting the Nobel Prize because they said he was too whatever sympathetic to terrorists.
Sort of a Tony Kushner type dude.
Yeah. And when he died, a guy who went to Hackney Down School like a couple of years later, another Jewish writer of considerably less renown wrote like a piece saying, basically the point of which was, I disagreed with his views on Israel, and also now that I think about it, his writing wasn't any good. He sort of goes backwards from I disagree with this guy's opinions, and actually he's overrated.
I also want to shout him out. He's one of these secret authors who you think of as being like nebbish and weak, but was actually like a hot sportsman guy in high school, and everybody remembers him for they talk about like testosterone evaporating off his back as he hit the cricket ball or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Mishima would weep to see him. Yeah. And then meanwhile, McEwan is sort of, he like criticized Stephen Hawking for boycotting a conference in Israel. He was a big, like, if we don't participate in the literary conferences and the readings and stuff in Israel, how are we ever going to bring ideas over there that will change people's minds? Like that kind of guy.
Ideas were like,
because he was going to bring some amazing ideas.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the stuff he said was like, you guys should like try to be a little bit nicer, figure some of this stuff out.
Right.
That type of powerful rhetoric.
Like when Doug Benson tweeted that everyone in Ferguson should just smoke a bowl together. You remember that?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, that I could get behind that.
And then, and then he gave an interview to an Italian newspaper. Oh. Hey, Italy's come up before on the show because Martin Amos, whatever, had been accused of racism for stuff he said about Islam, and McEwan also spoke out against Islamism, and then got a lot of shit for it, and was very clear. He then like issued a statement saying that I was only talking about Islamism, not Islam. I like the non-extremist guys.
Sneaks and he also, yes, please say that.
Yes, he sneaks
a term we made up to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And he sneaks in also, I grew up in a Muslim country in Libya. Of course, he was the son of an army major. So he grew up like on bases on the ruined remnants of the British Empire in military outposts in Libya, and
you sent me a truly deranged article.
Yeah, he. Okay, let's get it. Let's open it up.
I mean, it's confusing because he writes the character of Robert as like, again, this picture of an aristocrat who I think is in common with your Kazuo Ishiguros, your Mishimas, the people who recognize ambassador type people as these conservators of the worst type of old world order and old world hierarchy. And yet he also managed to say what? He also says,
this is the lead of this interview with McEwan, which is supposed to be a kind of puff piece, like about his new book out or whatever. The lead of this article in The Guardian. Toward the end of his third year at Sussex, Ian McEwan somewhat reluctantly visited the university's careers office. He already knew that he wanted to be a writer, but perhaps he thought this could be done in combination with a parent-placating job. Quote, I had read 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence, and the one thing I could imagine being was an Arabist diplomat, the kind of man who would wear a dinner jacket one evening and a keffiyeh the next. And he talks, so he like wanted to be Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, he did. Very
which like,
weird.
Do you know what happened? Like, talk about the kind of fusing of suppressed homosexuality and murderous violence.
Sure, yep.
And white linen.
He likes the clothes.
He does. Yeah.
Look, we all like the clothes. We all would love to look like Peter O'Toole. Ian McEwan, I think it was not in the cards for him. He's a real rimless glasses guy. But yeah, then he talks about how growing up in London in the 70s, he had a huge apartment in South London that cost him £3 a week. And he says he could live on £700 a year. Like, what do you want? Do you want me to come find you? Like, what are you trying to?
Yeah.
I told Ian I was hoping to come across this man in Minecraft, if you know what I mean.
You can't. You can't write an op-ed about being mad about anything.
Right.
If that's also like the light.
Yeah,
that's exactly correct.
Fuck off, dude. And then it's one of the fascinating things about McEwan is that he discovered when he was like in 2007, he discovered that his mother had been married prior to getting together with McEwan's father. And while she was married to that other man, she had had an affair with the man who would become McEwan's father. So he has a full-blooded brother from his parents' affair who was put up for adoption. So there is basically like a bizarro Ian McEwan who literally became a bricklayer. Like one of them is this internationally touted author and the other one works in construction. Although I got to shout out to the English for having, I think, more dignified names for people who do manual labor. Like a bricklayer just sounds more...
It's got some nobility to it. Yeah.
Or like a builder.
Uh-huh.
They say he's a builder, which like working in construction sounds so without like direction.
Yeah, or handyman. Like we do have these like diminutives that we sort of internalize.
Yeah, and this guy's a builder. Yeah. You know, he's got a pencil behind his ear and he puts up drywall.
You ever see British construction guys all like on a scaffolding in London together?
No.
It's like Lord of the Rings. It's like incredible. They're incredible.
They're having 11sies together.
Yeah.
They're opening, instead of the tin lunchbox, they'll have those big leaves.
Yeah.
With the elven lembas bread in it.
Yes. I love the Japanese construction outfits with like the big puffy pant legs that are kind of and the idea is that they're almost like an antenna, like you could sort of feel something like going wrong by like the swishiness of the pants, kind of like
like they're like cat's whiskers.
Yeah,
picking
exactly.
Up. Yeah. Love that. You know, Japanese people have like a sort of biomagnetic line down the side that can pick up on currents, and that's fish. I'm doing a fish joke. Yeah. Hey, that's you.
Hey, whoa, that's right.
Can I ask you this, Jordan? Is fish the original name, or is it abbreviated from like what was the Ellis Island name or whatever?
It was definitely Fish was what Max Fish reported at when he came here.
Max Fish like the bar?
Max Fish like the bar. Yeah, it sucks because I like that name and it's in my family, but hard to call dibs on it. Although that place is like open and closed. Like I feel like if I ever have a kid, not too worried about Max Fish the bar. They can come for me.
Okay.
I don't think trademarks even get in the way of naming kids usually.
Probably not. Yeah. That's an interesting question though. Can you name your kid like Nintendo Serwin? Like, can they come after me?
No way.
Just call him Tendo.
I mean, you're not like capitalizing on. You're not making money off the existence of your child using the strength of the brand.
That's what you think, pal.
Okay. All right.
I got Momager written all over me. That's interesting. We were Surowitz. It was, but there were too many Polish jokes made at my great grandfather's expense, so he changed the name. Great story, really good one. What else do we have to discuss here with the film? Well, what are we thinking?
I was happy to hear that both of you guys were watching American Gigolo and Mishima and these sort of like the heavy Schrader as visual stylist films, and I think this
recommend Patty Hearst to both of you, by the way, if you haven't seen it.
Cool.
Patty Hearst
fits into that.
I got to check that out.
In that lineage, and it's got a terrific Natasha Richardson performance.
Yeah. And obviously we have Spinoti in here who, does a bunch of Michael Mann stuff and Manhunter and has his own presence certainly on screen. But I don't know.
I think he works with Brett Ratner a few times.
I think that's right. Yeah. And Michael Apted, and I forget who else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the film's beautiful. Schrader said that he wanted to direct a film that would remind people of his ability to shoot elegance again. And gotta say, I think he was successful. Yeah. We talked about the blue, but there's like a plaza at night that's shot with like only seems like yellow sodium lights or something that I thought was very striking. Yeah. You guys know more than I do about visual shooting style, so I was just curious what you guys thought about this movie
visually. While you're thinking about it, I do want to just express my deep shock that Dante Spinotti shot Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
He's also he's shooting the upcoming, I believe, directorial debut of Nick Vallelonga, the guy who wrote Green Book.
Oh my God.
Called That's Amore, which stars
God.
Christopher Walken and Talia Shire, who's in another Paul Schrader
Old Boyfriends,
film.
Yeah.
Old Boyfriends, yeah. Paul Schrader written film. But yeah, visual thoughts. I heard in that there's a two great sort of long form interviews with video interviews with Schrader and Spinati that are on YouTube and also on the Criterion edition of this film, where Schrader says that I think it's called the Veriflex. There was basically a brand new camera technology that allowed them to do the throat slit shot in one. It's one shot.
It goes from
slow to fast.
Okay, yeah.
So this movie invented 300 basically, speed ramping.
It is something that became popular more in like the early 2000s. I feel like Fincher was into that.
Sure, that sounds right. Or like Rushmore, End of Rushmore, I think does that.
That's cool. They did that in camera. I like that shot of the diagonal alleyway when they're wandering around. There's a beautiful, just like diagonal slit of like down the frame, just perfectly composed. And just in general, like, you know, like I was saying about how a lot of this movie is just about feeling lost and like not sure what to look at or where to look at, or even just like the way that they pose for a portrait photo. And then when it cuts to the photo that's being taken, it's like the side profile.
Yeah.
Like there's just lots of smart things that are
disturbing,
photographically, you know, that where it's like we're using the camera, but we're kind of using the camera to intentionally evoke the sense of like indirectness.
If that makes
unsettle
sense. You. I wanted to shout out Ferdinando Scarfiati, who Schrader refers to as his visual teacher.
Yes.
On American Gigolo and Cat People. I believe had AIDS at this point, and so he couldn't work on this film. So a guy named Johnny Quaranta was the production designer on this film. Another Italian production designer came in. Any visual thoughts, Ray?
I mean, as a visualist, I love American Gigolo and Mishima. I feel like whatever he's chasing, that aesthetic that he's chasing, it's not the exact same thing, but there's like this thing that is alive in both of those movies that I'm very connected to and very like electrified by.
Is it alive here?
Less so. I mean, this is like, I think like it's like a beautiful movie. It doesn't feel as crazy as Don't Look Now in terms of like, I'm on the ground in Venice and this is making me feel really nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I watched like Affliction or like First Reformed or Autofocus. Those don't seem like highly visual movies to me.
It seems like he can really turn it off. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's this stuff where it's like when I'm watching Mishima or I'm watching like American Gigolo, I'm like, wow, he has this comfort with this like extremely like he knows how to use colors emotionally and like in really surprising ways. And I just think that stuff is fantastic. I just like there's a scene in Mishima where he's like, it's like one of the parts of the short story, and he's just signed away his life to that woman, and she's cutting him on the bed.
That section's great.
Oh yeah,
and they're in the pink room, and it's like playing this like really like upkey like Philip Glass music that makes it sound like it's just a movie about a guy finding himself.
Right.
You know,
all sort of vignettes.
Robert. Yeah, he's the Robert of that story. He's finding himself with a straight razor.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, just razor sex.
Yeah. I just shout out to all of the styling and the vignettes and how they're so different, but they also dovetail or like the way that movie is constructed with it being very clear, like, okay, color is the current day and black and white is a flashback, and then crazy color and crazy production design is the novels. But yet also it's like there's like the perfect blend of that stuff being extremely distinct, but also blurring the lines between, is this like how Mishima felt when he was a kid? Is this character Mishima, and in what way? Is it's just a very, very like expressive film.
I like really like American Gigolo, but my favorite two scenes are like he walks into that one red restaurant.
The red bar,
incredible.
First meets,
and then when he's doing the color combinations of his outfits, it's like, and those are like. The whole film is so plotty and so about a specific moment in time and these characters, but like those two scenes are about color. They're just about like color, and they're very really like emotionally on target to me. So I like him when he veers into visuals and he makes his visuals as weird as his writing, I guess.
Yeah,
and I think that's maybe what it is that like he is still in a visual filmmaking mode here, but he didn't write the script,
right?
So maybe. Yeah, that has something to do with not being as locked in terms of like, color theory stuff or
Maybe, yeah, because he's not planning it from the get-go. And he's also, I think, a guy whose budgets go all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I think just depending on where he is in terms of anyone wanting to work with him or give him money to do things, that determines whether he can put his whole Paul Schrader into it, you know. I'm not going to say that on the show anymore.
I have one more.
Sorry about doing it once.
I have one more little visual thing, which is the shot of the Kenneth Branagh book.
Yes,
it's being read on the
beginning.
Incredible.
I see it as a dig against two people. I see it as a dig against Kenneth Branagh, but then also a dig against Nicholas Roeg. Because Roeg just loves to put book covers in his movies as like a signifier.
Well, but so does Schrader. Like in Cat People,
Mishima's on the
John
shelf.
Hurd character is reading Mishima. I personally just thought it was maybe Schrader acknowledging how much, from some angles, Natasha Richardson and Emma Thompson look like the same person.
It's just an interesting choice. Let's not say that it's. I don't have to say that it's a dig per se, but it really felt like a Nick Roeg moment.
What's funny that came up, because when the movie started, I thought this is the city from that Haunting in Venice movie.
That's right.
I think they shot this in the same place.
Yeah.
I did have a silly question. Well, not. I won't say that. I had an important question.
All right.
It's the best of the three Monsieur Poirot movies, I think.
That's what I've heard. That's what people
certainly
insist is
He's
the case.
really going for something there. Do we think that the Robert character in this, and that this film generally, inspired Dr. Evil's monologue about his upbringing? Because I've seen a lot of James Bond movies. I don't think anyone ever does that in one of those. And the first thing I thought of, and look, Austin Powers is never far from my mind, but
of course,
the first thing I thought of when he starts talking about that, it's like being placed in burlap sacks and beaten with reeds. Zoroastrian ritualistically shaved my testicles. Like all of the Dr. Evil background stuff really feels like this whole story with the cream cakes and the lemonade.
I mean, it seems as good a like source as any for that, I think. And Ray, you were talking about SNL also, like the
Continental. Do you guys remember that sketch, The Continental?
Oh yeah, where is that the one where he has the plants with the googly eyes on them, or is that a different thing?
No, it's like
the Continental where he's the like bachelor guy.
Yeah,
he's showing you around his apartment. Yeah,
that character that's based on like a real TV show that shows up in a Schrader movie, doesn't it?
Really?
Doesn't the Continental show up in Old Boyfriends or something?
I know it's based off of an old TV show, but I don't know.
Ian, we talked about this before,
but it feels
right?
like when you've got Walken doing it. I mean, I don't want to step on your idea.
Yeah, the Continental is just a sketch. It's from 1990, and so it's like the exact same era. I just feel like there's a lot of performance similarities between, if you look at a 1990 Continental sketch and this performance, he's like digging into the same toolbox.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And I wonder which, the first sketch aired like it aired like right before the release of this film in Italy. But yeah, there was a show called The Continental on CBS in the 50s, who was basically like a TV boyfriend. And Talia Shire watches it in the film Old Boyfriends, which we
and also Walken would still be able to draw from the experience of shooting the movie, right? Like,
absolutely.
Even if the writer didn't directly see the movie yet, Walken would have just been like, well, I know how this character goes.
Yeah, I think it's like the two scenarios bring out, I think, a surprise, and one is totally comedic and the other one is like comedic / menace, you know? And but the Continental is also menacing, so
right, of course.
I feel like the tension is there.
Walken can do. He talked in some. I think maybe Schrader quoted him in Schrader on Schrader, but he had recently done some movie where the cinematographer tried to light him from below, and he said, like, I don't need you to make me look evil. I can do that. Yeah, I bring that to the table. Which is terrific. I love that very much. He's also, the same year, he does The King of New York with Abel Ferrara, which is one of the great Walken performances.
Yes.
Where he's a mixture of comedic and evil. Terrific film. And for some reason, I confused the Continental with the SNL sketch with the census taker.
Amazing. Tim Meadows.
Tim Meadows comes to Christopher Walken's door, and he's like, so his apartment is full of houseplants, but he's afraid of houseplants, so he has to put googly eyes on all of them so that they don't scare him.
Brilliant.
Yeah. A Tina Fey classic. Right. Should we wrap things up? Should we bring the show into the should we push the show up against the mirror and pull out the razor here?
Yep.
Jordan, you said you had a tag for us.
I was just going to say that Walken's monologue about the chocolate and being tormented by his sisters also reminds me quite a bit of Abed's monologue about shitting his pants on the set of Cougar Town.
Of course. Yep.
Yeah, was that the My Dinner with Andre parody episode?
Yeah, but the secret reference point was Comfort of Strangers. That's what I'm that's what I'm presupposing.
Well, we've had a lot of Andre recently, so this is all possible.
Yeah, Andre Gregory's been in a number of these films. It's all connected. We should say Helen Mirren had worked with Schrader. Well, she had worked from a Schrader script on the Mosquito Coast before. Yep. And Christopher Walken comes back for Forever Mine Touch. Sorry, he comes back for Touch in 1997. Rupert Everett, meanwhile, has been busy as whatever a patron of the British Monarchist Society and Foundation is.
Oh, hell yeah.
And also saying,
I want that.
Yeah, he's also saying that he identified as transgender during his childhood and dressed as a girl from age 6 to 14, but then expressed opposition to the use of hormones on children and also his opposition to cancel culture. So he's a special kind of...
The casting is brilliant. This is the type of guy who both, I mean, he, again, in real life is gay and on screen.
But I think what he's expressing is he's richer than he is gay.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Or sort of like more arrogant than he is gay or something.
Right.
Yeah.
He majored in rich and minored in gay, basically.
I mean, look, I haven't brought up White Lotus yet, but I think it's also another point of comparison. And
of course.
I haven't seen it. Don't watch TV.
Nor should you.
Okay.
But I think that's that's the thing that Mike White was saying is I want to have the freedom to write evil gays on my shows.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we should all have that freedom.
That's beautiful. I think that's a great point of comparison also, because I sent Jake a bunch of stuff about Gen X, both like contemporaneous people talking about Gen X concerns, and also people reflecting back on sort of like the meaninglessness of generation-based analysis and how it overlooks like class and racial and country difference.
Great citations needed episode on this, as always. And also that piece you sent me by Kim Phillips-Fein, who wrote the book Fear City that we talked about on our Taxi Driver episode.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's a dissent article. So I think it's very good. But part of this, I think, White Lotus is bringing up, and it was sort of talked about as like the millennial transition to Gen Z social analysis show. And I think what really comes to the fore here is the fact that these concerns are just repeated again and again about it's like a generation of people who are too interested in themselves and aren't going to contribute, and they don't have a sense of purpose. And I think, we have the new version, we have the Gen X version, and then we have the centuries old aristocratic version, which I think makes it so clear that this is a consequence of like a specific cycle of a very unique class and how it runs up against basically people aging out and being frustrated about the democratization of the world, or basically any change in the world, and identifying that in certain people. So I think it continues on today with White Lotus. That's a good finish here.
Things certainly do continue on today with White Lotus.
That's right.
It has to be said.
It must be said.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we do our last little segment here?
I have American Giallo written down.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's like the other movie, but slightly different. I like that very much.
Yeah, I could have made it a punchline, but just said it.
Braver. I think that's great.
Helen Mirren's outfit in that final scene, that caftan is incredible.
Oh yeah, in the final scene, the sleeveless thing. Yeah. Shout out to Helen Mirren. Welcome on the show anytime. Taylor Hackford not invited. Sorry, bud.
Come on to the White Sea.
Okay, you want to have Taylor Hackford on?
She's married to Taylor Hackford?
Yeah, dude. She has been for years.
God. Correct.
That's why she did that weird Bunny Ranch movie directed by Taylor Hackford.
I'm Googling Taylor Hackford now.
The Devil's Advocate, right?
He may have, yeah. He did Ray. That's his big one, which is a movie about you. And he did that weird Hail Hail rock and roll documentary where like Keith Richards and Bruce Springsteen played Chuck Berry songs in front of Chuck Berry. If anybody's seen that. Yeah, Taylor Hackford, I mean, it's unfair that the word is in his name, but he's just kind of like he's like a journeyman. He's like who directed that movie? Oh, Taylor Hackford, right. Makes sense,
But he's no Peter Hyams.
He must be a great boyfriend.
Yeah, husband, I think.
Yeah. What a testament.
But what is a husband, if not a really great boyfriend? And many people have been saying this. We have
That's the message of this film, actually.
Exactly.
If you're a bad boyfriend, you might be a bad husband.
Yeah. It's time now for the sexual obsession check-in. It's okay. Don't get scared.
Ray, did you have any final thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
That you needed to sneak in here?
I think it was just the caftan. Yeah. I love that caftan.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. All right. So this is a sexual obsession check-in. Paul Schrader, in introducing, I believe, Patty Hearst at a screening in New York City, where you guys have been, is he had this to say about his upcoming project, which is we now know is called Non Compos Mentis. He said this about his next script.
I've never written a script about sexual obsession, and so that's the one I'm doing now.
Ray's face is correct. That's the correct reaction to that.
Has he never written a script about sexual obsession?
Well, so that's what we're here to ask on the show. Is we're trying to identify if any of his movies are not about sexual obsession. We have a few on the list, but overwhelmingly, and I think this is a pretty open and shut. Yep.
I also think that.
Okay, but compared to like De Palma, right? These characters are obsessed with like Japanese society, like not being about honor anymore, or like
right, but sexually obsessed about Japanese society not being about honor anymore. But
the object is a little unclear, I would say.
Sure, there's just an erotic charge to all of the violent obsessions of Schrader characters when they're not literally sexually obsessed with someone, like in
the film Obsession,
Taxi Driver, or the film Obsession.
I'm just trying to get inside his mind in terms of like what he hasn't done. Right?
Well, so are we. Right. By the way, the editor of this film, Bill Pankow, big Brian De Palma guy, did a bunch of De Palma films. So, Ray, what do you think? Sexual obsession present in the film?
In this film, yes. In all his other films, yes. I think my question is about First Reformed. Is do you think they get together at the end of that movie? Is that like a romantic comedy, essentially about a guy that just needs to figure his stuff out before he can meet this girl and raise this kid together?
We need somebody to re-edit the trailer for that film with like Salisbury Hill and Chelsea Dagger. And all those songs.
Is that a couple at the end of that movie though?
I think so, but I think
so.
I think it may also be a sort of like a platonic couple, like the end of 28 Days Later or something. Like, I don't know if they're
kissing though.
He's also said that it could be a dream.
Them kissing?
Yeah. That like this is him.
He's undoing the Taxi Driver thing. He's like, that one wasn't a dream, but now this one could be. Yeah. We'll get to it. I don't know. We got months to think about this.
Artists and their intentions, like,
Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it seems pretty real.
Yeah. Well, that's I feel pretty confident in saying that this movie has some sexual obsession present in the text and the subtext as well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jordan and Ray and Jordan, for being on the show today. Really a delight to have you.
Thank you guys so much for coming back.
Total pleasure.
What's going on with you guys? Like, what's your deal? What's your whole deal? What's anything you want to plug?
You were on Hit Factory. Wonderful episode.
Yeah, great episode of Hit Factory on the film A Simple Plan.
Yeah, glad you liked that. And, me and Ray are just both working super hard on feature film projects.
Yeah, we want to plug the feature film screenplays that we've both written.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody out there?
Big time.
But
where can they find them?
Just as partly as a mea culpa in terms of the output of To the White Sea having slowed down. But like, we have a ton of stuff planned and we're talking about it, and we definitely want to get that started again. It's just been
also me and Jordan have just written feature film screenplays that are very complicated.
Do not cede anything to anybody who would even consider complaining about.
All right, so
something.
everybody who's been DMing me and texting me, like,
I consider it sort of a power move.
Yeah, okay, that's what it is. Yeah, no, it is a power move.
Jordan wrote a brilliant script.
Thank you. And Ray wrote a brilliant script.
Thank you, Jordan.
And they're very different.
Very different. Yeah. Couldn't be more different, but both very intertwined with the stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah,
To the White Sea. Yeah,
Jordan, you did
rewrote To the White Sea.
You wrote the Sam Mendes. You wrote the Sam Mendes Paul McCartney movie, and Ray wrote the Sam Mendes George Harrison movie. That's right. That's correct. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
The other two were written by AI.
I mean, that's probably true. My therapist sent me an AI tool today.
What was it?
Cool.
It's like it's a to-do list maker. So you tell it like what you need to do, and it helps you figure out what the steps are. Sort of a paralysis problem that I encounter.
A pretty good use of AI.
Yeah, of all the things to help someone with generalized anxiety figure out. Okay, well, if I need to like call the insurance company, what's the first step? And it's probably like look up the phone number for the insurance company. But it does use OpenAI, so if I ask it to do anything, it will drain Lake Superior immediately. Like it'll just destroy the earth. So that's a new anxiety that I have, which is so wonderful.
They should hook it into your therapist's water cooler. Like that's like it should just be like be like rooftop solar.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to say that Rooftop Solar will be our guest on next week's show because it kind of sounds like someone's name, but I acknowledge that it doesn't. You know,
okay.
It'd be kind of like Beach House.
Rooftop Solar will be.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. I'm feeling good now. You know what? Great therapy session today.
Can I? Oh, wait. I should. Do you want to hear the story of how I met Paul Schrader? Just briefly.
What?
Yes.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Really felt like when Jake asked about what's your relationship with Paul Schrader.
2 hours and 39 minutes into the file.
I didn't hang out with him. I just met him. I was at the premiere of First Reformed at Metrograph.
Run into him, yeah.
And,
very cool.
And then there's a very nice like bar and restaurant upstairs, and he was hanging out, and I just kind of sidled up, and I was like, I really like the movie Winter Light, and I was very and I enjoyed seeing the way that you like flipped it, or whatever. I don't think I said flipped it.
Yeah,
I was like, it was cool. I was just like, it was cool seeing this movie because Winter Light is like one of my favorite movies.
And he said, never heard of it.
No. He was totally forthright. He's like, oh, well, then you'd already seen it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's funny.
Yeah. So that was basically it. I don't know if I met him per se, but that was my Paul Schrader experience. Yeah.
Extremely relevant and confirming all of his signature candor about his own films. So that's nice to hear.
Ray, have you ever met the man?
Never met the guy.
What about Walken?
I've never met Christopher Walken. But like I said, Ben Silent just had Schrader down in New Orleans at the Wildwood screenings, and they showed Cat People. Yeah. And they said he was just a hoot. He shows up. He's down to show up to things right
it's
now.
It's on us, I think.
It's on you because he will show up at a Baskin Robbins right now.
Yeah. Me and Paul Schrader with a large daiquiri ice. Come on.
Ooh, come to New York. Baby. Come to New York. Go chill with him. He's in Midtown.
Yeah, he's at the
Hudson Yards
assisted living thing in Hudson Yards. Yeah.
I have a Schrader thing that there's a part in First Reformed where he pours some booze into a cereal bowl and then tears some bread off and dips the bread.
That's a Taxi Driver thing.
I know.
I think that's
Diary of a Country Priest. Yeah.
That's from Diary of a Country Priest?
That's a big Schrader text.
Okay, so that's a reference to another movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's really distinctive.
It's not something he does.
It's pretty distinctive.
Yeah, it's nasty. All right. I think that's going to about do it for us. Remember to subscribe, rate us, write a review. Helps us on the algo. If you like the show, tell a friend, tell your dad, tell the Italian police. Carabinieri. Ray knows what I'm talking about. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Podcasty for me. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, or interested in co-hosting a two-person Paul Schrader podcast, you can email us at podcastyforme@gmail.com. All of that is at podcastyforme.com and at shootingyourselfinthehead.com. Thank you to Jeremy Allison for our artwork. Next week is a movie about me. It's called Light Sleeper. I'm having sleep problems. Can you tell? Don't email us if you can tell. And that's going to do it for us. Thanks. Ian?
Bye.